Good evening and welcome to the council meeting of the town of Newmarket on Monday, January the 20th, 2014. All members of council are present and Mayor Van Byen is presiding.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. There are no additions. Well, there is an addition to the agenda, and that involves the discussions that we had today under item number 7. And I'm wondering if we could add that, the two items that are shown under item number 7 that deal with today's, for ratification of today's decisions. Could I have a motion to that effect? Councillor DiMuccio?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I will move it, but I also have another addition or point of order to this agenda item.
Okay. Is there a seconder for the additions? Councillor Emanuel, all those in favor? Okay. And a correction, did you say, for the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to be discussing this, and perhaps the clerk can help me with that. But I wanted to voice my opposition to setting aside the Code of Conduct review. There is a bylaw, and I believe it's bylaw 2014-06, a bylaw to appoint an integrity commissioner, and that comes from a discussion that was on this agenda, on a prior agenda. To give you some background,
we can deal with that when we come to the bylaw. That might be the time that we would deal with that.
Well, that's fine. We can deal with it at the time of the bylaw, but I do believe that that should be on this agenda, and it's not. That motion about the Code of Conduct review.
Okay.
That is, we had internal emails through staff and council. Again, Mr. Mayor, the background on this is that December 2nd, we had a promise by staff that a bylaw in the Code of Conduct was to come before council for adoption on December 2nd. That did not happen. And we're taking a few things of that conduct review and we're sort of cherry picking it and putting it on this bylaw that is coming before us tonight, and it was never on any agenda for discussion.
Okay. So when we come to that, it's on page 65, and we can bring that back or not deal with that this evening if there's additional information that's required. Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Being none, first item is a presentation and recognition, and Ms. Deborah Scott from the Newmarket Chamber of Commerce will address council. Ms. Scott? We're encountering some technical difficulties, but anticipate that'll be resolved shortly. There we go. And this is Smart Commute, Central York.
Apologize for the technical difficulties, but we see that all is working. So thank you very much.
Deborah, if I could have you press the button. That's the one. Okay.
Apologize for the technical difficulties. Good evening. My name is Deborah Scott, and I'm the President and CEO of the Newmarket Chamber of Commerce. And I welcome you here tonight to recognize the Town of Newmarket's outstanding achievement and commitment in the Smart Commute program. Smart Commute Central York is a program of the Newmarket Chamber of Commerce and is funded by Metrolinx, the regional municipality of York, and the Town of Newmarket. Smart Commute works with organizations in Northern York Region to promote sustainable modes of commuting such as carpooling, transit, walking, cycling, and teleworking in order to reduce congestion and reduce greenhouse gas emissions so that commuters and businesses can enjoy the resulting economic and health benefits. The statistics you see here have been collected through our ride matching website, carpoolzone.ca. Since inception in 2007, Smart Commute Central York has reduced single-occupant vehicle trips by over 145,000. That's enough cars to fill the Upper Canada Mall parking lot over 28 times. We've reduced vehicle kilometers traveled by almost 8 million kilometers, equivalent to 199 trips around the world. We've saved commuters over $2.1 million in commuting costs and avoided over 700,000 kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions, which is the equivalent of CO2 emissions from 29,000 propane cylinders used for barbecues. Each year, Smart Commute Central York assesses all their member organizations' activities and submits the results to Metrolinx for review and verification. For 2014, the evaluation was based on 6 broad categories that you'll see on the slide. Based on the results of this assessment, an organization qualifies for one of 3 designations, with gold being the highest level. Smart Commute Central York is extremely proud to have been recognized by Metrolinx for having the highest number of gold and silver workplace or businesses out of 13 Smart Commute offices across the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. This is a testament to the strong working relationships and commitment from our member businesses such as the town of Newmarket. It was the regional municipality of York, along with Mayor Van Bynen's vision in 2006 when he was a regional councillor, that launched the Smart Commute program. I would also like to thank Regional Councillor John Taylor and Councillor Jane Twinney, who were instrumental in starting our annual Bike to Work Day 7 years ago, and today we're pleased to say they both co-chair that committee, so thank you to all 3 of you. And finally, I'd also like to recognize the town's Smart Commute Workplace Coordinator, Cindy Wackett, who is responsible for program delivery to town staff and has worked especially hard this past year to move the town from silver status to gold. A gold workplace provides outstanding support of Smart Commute programming, demonstrates success in being an innovative leader, and provides infrastructure and end-of-trip facilities to encourage their employees to choose alternatives to driving alone. For example, this past year the town purchased their first electric bike as part of their fleet vehicles for use by one of their capital project staff, and the town has an electric vehicle charging station at the operations centre. For these reasons and several more, the town of Newmarket is an outstanding example of a workplace that is committed to sustainable commuting. Congratulations on receiving the gold standard for 2014. The town is one of only 46 gold workplaces out of 316 across the Greater Toronto Area and Hamilton. I'd now like to call upon Mayor Van Bynen to receive the certificate and congratulatory letter from Bruce McQuaig, President and CEO of Metrolinx.
More on the front. I'll ask members of council to join me. It's a council initiative, so why don't we all join everybody to receive this. We have a cell phone that we can tweet this out. This is good. There we are. Thank you. We'll step forward a bit, and we can make it a double layer. Cindy here?
Yes.
Oh, did you?
We'll get the photos from the town.
Okay.
No, that's good. Yeah, that's
All
great.
right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're doing a great job
Congratulations,
there,
really
yeah.
appreciate it.
Now, do I get to
For
keep
you.
that?
You get to keep it.
Thank you.
I almost kept it.
Thank you very much, Deborah. It's a real honor and a pleasure for us to receive this award, but in no small way, it's largely out of the activities that the Chamber has undertaken, and it's been a great partnership for us over many years. And I sincerely hope that that's a continuing and growing relationship that benefits our community as well as it has and as well as it will in the future. So thank you very much for bringing that forward. There's no indications of any deputations. The minutes, or approval of minutes of council, December the 16th. Can I have a motion, please, as to the correctness of the minutes? Councillor Manuel, Councillor Hempen. All those in favor? That is carried. There's no correspondence. Reports by regional representatives. Regional Councillor?
Thanks very much. Two things I just want to quickly report on. One is that the region of York, the end of this week, will have a workshop on post-secondary institutions and the opportunity for post-secondary education in York region. The town of Newmarket has been doing quite a bit of work on this for a couple of years, and we do have a working group with volunteers in the community who work on this effort. This workshop is partially due to the province putting out a call for interest in what will be a process that's ongoing over the next month or two as communities all over Ontario look at this opportunity. And certainly this is something that Newmarket is looking at very seriously, but also York region and Northern York region. And I would expect that this process will move somewhat rapidly at this point, province-wide. The other thing I wanted to just touch on, and I think it's really quite an important document, although it's mostly what it is it's a report from Planning and Economic Development, which is the Land Use Planning and Appeal System Review. This includes a reference to the Ontario Municipal Board. The town of Newmarket also has a report in this council agenda that has spoken to directly to the province about the need for some changes in land use planning and the land use planning appeal process, including the OMB. The regional report has been submitted as well. I just wanted to quickly touch base on the regional report. It was a result of extensive consultation with many regional partners and municipalities that the region submitted its comments. The comments included the region highlighting the need for the scope of the review to be expanded to fully address the Ontario Municipal Board. It pointed out that an expanded review of this is critical moving forward, and it needs to include an examination of the ability of the OMB to hear and adjudicate appeals and issue decisions in a timely manner. It needed to look at the qualification and selection process for members of the OMB and the consistency in decision-making, including the role of precedent in decisions at the OMB, including the clergy principle, which is often quite debated. Furthermore, this review, the regional staff and regional council submitted comments that included that the ability to appeal municipal conformity exercises and whole plan appeals should be removed from the land use planning system. And staff indicated it's been their experience that whole plan appeals are simply used as a bargaining tool at the OMB. Also, it went on to indicate that the land use planning and appeal system needs to place greater priority on local decision making. And I think many people in the community have heard this council and members of this council speak directly to this point. Our staff report at the town of Newmarket speaks to this, and the region speaks to this in this report. The report from the region that was sent to the province indicates that York Region and its 9 local municipalities have and will continue to develop sophisticated planning, policy, and plans through open and transparent processes involving significant stakeholder engagement and collaboration. These collaborative processes are often sidetracked through site-specific, highly speculative development proposals, York Region recommends that privately initiated official plan amendments only be considered at the time of the 5-year municipal comprehensive review. Further, the OMB should give higher credence than simply having regard to municipal council planning decisions. This is a strong statement from the region to the province about the importance of respecting the decision-making authority of local councils and regional council, and I think it's important to note that these comments that were forwarded to the province as part of this review were unanimously supported by all mayors and regional councillors from the 9 municipalities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Kerwin, question?
Just a question for our audience to our regional councillor. What is the clergy principle, John, that you referred to?
It's a very simple explanation, and probably not doing it entirely justice, but the simple explanation is that the clergy principle is a principle often, if not always applied, but often applied at the OMB, which states that a planning application will be judged under the planning criteria, policy, and documents at the time of its application.
Very good.
Thank you. Councillor Demucho?
Yes, I actually just pulled out a report from AMO, for those of you not familiar with AMO. It's the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and they certainly, we are registered, we belong to that association, the town of Newmarket does, and you know, they send out reports all the time, and I just read the latest letter that was sent out to the minister on behalf of the AMO, and there were some things that I was a little concerned of, and I'll just read that to you, and I'd like to get your feedback on that. Some of the issues that AMO had with this document was that currently there's no decision on a planning application within prescribed time frame. It's treated as though it's been refused, and ending the ability to add on new appeals when first appeals result from refusal to address a proposed amendment would help focus appeals on the matter which triggered an appeal. We're talking about OMB here. It goes on to talk about certain OMB issues, and basically, in a nutshell, it's important that appeals have substance and based on factual planning concerns, but that while citizen participation is vital to a healthy planning process, in some cases, ensuring citizens groups have the financial capacity to deal with the outcomes of appeals in the form of a security deposit should be an option. These provisions of Section 45 of the Planning Act, quote, dismissal without hearing, deserve more consideration. Specifically, the definitions of, quote, frivolous vexation and for the purpose of delay should be better understood, and the OMB should make use of this clause. In all cases, mediation should take place before a board hearing.
Okay. And a question? Or?
I just wanted to know what the regional councillor's feedback on that is, because I am concerned if the AMO has a concern, I also would have a concern with that. We're being asked tonight to adopt this, that's why.
Yeah, and I don't think that the AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, obviously comes to their conclusions with heavy input from their association municipalities, and I think that their comments are not contrary to regional or municipal comments. Some of them are an extension of, some of them are very similar to. You started by mentioning the issue of the timing and appeals being sent directly to the municipal board for the time lapsing, and that is also addressed in this document. I didn't cover everything in the document, but I did forward this document to all members of council a week or two ago, and so that is captured in here. And I think the other issues they're asking to be looked at are worth examining, and I think are either extensions of or in keeping with the positions of its member municipalities.
So you would support examining those clauses that the AMO has put forward here? I can certainly send you a copy of that. I just want to make sure, and maybe when we come to that, when we adopt those, there is something on our agenda tonight to adopt this recommendation. Maybe the CEO can give us better feedback on whether these measures have been adopted in your report.
The only thing I would comment and caution is that AMO's language is quite different from York Region's language, which I think the region's language is much more prescriptive. AMO's asking for areas to be looked at, which I think is doesn't come to a conclusion that there is or is not an issue or something that needs to be changed. And so in terms of looking at all of those areas, I think I would expect the review to do that. And again, I think AMO works in concert with its member municipalities.
Mm-hmm. Their scope is much broader, and they'll be doing their own representations to the province of Ontario as well. And so their feedback would be reflected there as well. Okay, thank you. Next item is reports of committees and staff. First item is the Special Committee of the Whole minutes of January the 13th. Councillor Sponga, Councillor DiMuccio, all those in favor? That is, any opposed? That is carried. That led into the closed session, item number 4. Sorry, that's the item number 4 is the minutes of the closed session of January the 13th. And I would ask that the minutes of the Special Committee of the Whole closed session of January 13th morning session be approved. Could I have a motion to that effect, please? Councillor Sponga, Councillor Emmanuel. All those in favor? That is carried. In those minutes, there's a joint report from the CAO and the Development Services and Infrastructure Services Planning and Building Services Report 2013-56, and it relates to strategic property acquisitions. So I would ask for a motion that staff be authorized to take the necessary steps directed at the January 13, 2014 morning session, Special Committee of the Whole closed session meeting regarding the strategic priorities. Could I have a motion to that effect, please? Regional Councillor, Councillor Curran, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that is carried. Okay. Next item is item number 5. Item number 5 is the Committee of the Whole minutes of January 13th. Now, this is our regular Committee of the Whole. So are there any items in that Committee of the Whole meeting that members of Council wish to deal with separately? Councillor Sponga?
Just a clarification, Mr. Mayor. Item 4 of 3, page 3 of 14. It deals with, and you have to forgive me, Mr. Mayor, I have a bit of a laryngitis today. It deals with site plan. Just going to try and pull it here, Mr. Mayor.
So if we could use, Joe, if we could use the numbers on the top of the page, because that's,
Okay.
those sequential, that'll help us.
Trying to find page 3 of 14. Let me
It's
find
page
it's
23.
The item, it deals with site plan. Here is page 23, Mr. Mayor. It's item 3, site plan review committee minutes, November 12th. The item is item 4, and it deals with, in addition to the BMW dealership of Mulock, Serpa BMW. I received some.
Yeah, we can deal with that separately, or
Yes.
did you want that dealt
Thank
with
you.
separately?
We'll
Item
deal with
number
it
4.
separately.
Item number, if I could, Councillor, item number 3 is the minutes. Item number 4 is the excerpt of the minutes. So we can
Correct.
we'll deal with item number 4 separately then?
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Kerwin?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull number 18, which is Green for Life, and that's on page 27.
Okay.
And I believe that the work that we did at a Committee of the Whole meeting should be read to the residents.
We can deal with that when we'll pull the item now?
Yep.
Okay, we'll get.
And the other one that I'd like to pull is item number 19. That's to do with Glenway.
Okay, thank you. Item number 19. Item number 18 is on page 27.
That's on
Item
page,
number 28. Item
Yep.
number 19 is on page 28. Okay. Councillor DiMuccio?
Councillor Kerwin pulled out the item 19, so that's fine, but I would in addition like to pull out item 21, and that's on page 30.
Okay.
That's
Item
the tax
21
levy.
is the interim tax
Yep,
billing bylaw.
And I wanted to pull out item, today's report here. I'm not sure what I.
We're not coming to that yet. That's item number 7.
Is that going to be separate?
Yep. That's
So-
item number 7.
So
That's
we're going to
today's.
ratify that separately, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
item number 7.
Okay, that's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a motion then, please, to accept the recommendations of the Committee of the Whole of January 13th, with the exceptions of items number 4, 18, 19, and 21?
So moved.
Councillor Sponga, Councillor Kerwin, all those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Start with item number 4. Councillor, well, let me hear a motion with respect to that item.
I'll move to adopt minutes.
Are there recommendations?
Yes.
Okay, is there a seconder? Second. Councillor Hempin. Councillor Sponga as the mover.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just I want to just clarify a very simple item on this item. It deals with, in addition to the BMW dealership on Mulock, and when this site was developed, there was a condition from the OMB that for adjacent residents sign off on any additional or any additions or changes to the building. And I just wanted to, I have received some correspondence from the residents, and I just wanted to assure them that that condition will be upheld.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Councillor Hempin, did you want to speak to that as a
No, that's
seconder?
fine. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Next item then is item number 18. Could I have a motion with respect to item number 18, please? The recommendation. Okay. Councillor Kerwin?
Mr. Mayor, I think it's very important that the residents of the town of Newmarket know the steps that this council has taken and staff has taken with Green for Life. I think all members of council experienced a lot of discomfort for the past 4 weeks on the fact that the green bin wasn't picked up and the blue box wasn't picked up and the garbage wasn't picked up and the trees, the Christmas trees weren't picked up on the 13th. And I'd like to thank staff who went around the town today and picked up all the remaining trees. So today is the 20th. So they had an extra 7 days, but it ended up that our staff had to pick up the remaining Christmas trees that were on Gorham and William Curtis Circle in my ward. But would you like to read, Mr. Mayor, what we have tried to do with Green for Life to put them on track in the future, or would you like me to do that? All members of council worked on this, so we're trying to bring this contractor to heel, that he picks up what we put out on the curbside in a fashionable manner and one on time.
Okay. Councillor, why don't you read the recommendation?
I'd like to read the recommendations, Mr. Mayor, and that Green for Life be required to provide a remediation plan and a signed commitment for council and the residents of Newmarket within 14 days addressing levels of service, quality and quantity of trucks, staffing issues, and preventative maintenance. And then we have a report, and it sums in parts 1, 2, and 3 that staff continue to work with the contractor Green for Life and the other municipal partners in good faith to resolve all issues and improve the level of service for collectible waste, and that staff review any costs, losses, and remedies of the municipality as a result of the issues encountered with the contractor, and that staff be authorized to pursue any appropriate legal remedies provided for in the Green for Life contract to recover these losses, and that Green for Life be required to provide a remediation plan and a signed commitment for council and the residents of Newmarket within 14 days addressing levels of service, quality and quantity of trucks, staffing issues, and preventative maintenance. And that was carried unanimously. And now that we're on that topic, Mr. Mayor, I know the trucks are all provided with a global system where they locate the streets, a GPS. However, I found even with the GPS that the drivers just didn't know where all the streets were. And to the residents of Ward 2, I personally apologize to people on Riddell Court. Today again, their green bin and blue box was not picked up. And before Christmas, they had to wait for 3 weeks for it to be picked up. I hope tonight that it was picked up, and if it wasn't picked up, I guarantee that the street will be cleared tomorrow. Also on William Curtis Circle and McKinnon Court, who waited 3 weeks for pickups. And I must say that Rod Smith, as the manager, did everything possible. On Lake Court, I went and picked up the blue bins and the green boxes myself, and Rod Smith kindly allowed me to take those to the op center. But it's been a very trying 4 weeks. But I believe that this council has laid the law down to Green for Life, and I hope they comply. As I say, I didn't see any action of that over the weekend because on Monday, an area of my town, the waste was still not picked up. So I think we have to monitor this company very, very carefully, and I'm prepared to do that. And I expect them to continue to provide in the future the service that we've been used to in this town by LaRue and Turtle Island, because when the Northern Six awarded the contract to Turtle Island, they were an exemplary company, but unfortunately they were bought out a year and a half ago by Green for Life, and I don't think we've had the level of service that we're entitled to and that we paid for. And particularly with yard waste, even in my ward, their last pickup was on December the 6th. They hadn't completed it all, and they weren't coming back. They told customer service that they weren't. So I went out and I picked up what yard waste was left, and I took it to the op center. So it's been strenuous, but my belief is that if they do not conform with what they have said that's laid out for them now, that we abrogate their contract, either individually or collectively with the Northern Six. And I've already contracted or spoken to a waste management company that during the cold weather and the snow and the rain and everything else, they didn't miss one pickup in the GTA.
Thank you. Councillor Hempin, or sorry, Regional Councillor is the seconder.
Thanks very much. I think that Councillor Kerwin covered most of the issues related to this. I just think it's important to say that a great number of our residents received a standard of service that was unacceptable. A great number of our staff spent a lot of time, a lot of long hours over the holidays, and frankly, members of this council also communicating with members, public, dealing with a great number of emails and phone calls to try to bring this under control. And we've put forward some very strong wording in these recommendations that we hope GFL will hear. We simply want to get the service back to where it should be. I do want to add one thing, though. I think there's been some communication. I want to be clear. A great large number of the communication has been people that are been dissatisfied with the service, but there's been some people sending a message saying, there was some bad weather. Could you take it easy on these guys? I think there might have even been a letter to the editor. I just think what needs to be understood by maybe some residents had fairly good service or maybe only a minor interruption. And they thought, well, what's the big deal? And I guess hopefully you pick up from this conversation is that there are significant areas of town and significant numbers of residents who have had numerous 5 and 6 and 7 days of delays or missed pickup. Some areas of town and some residents who went 2 and 3 weeks without a pickup at all. And so the level of decline in service was extreme for some and many residents, although not everybody necessarily experienced that. And that's why it's requiring a strong response from the town of Newmarket. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hempin.
Thank you. Yeah, the service has improved with GFL in the last week. We've had some issues over the last 3 or 4 weeks, even going back into July. I did receive a number of calls from residents yesterday and today, and that their waste was supposed to be picked up on Thursday, and it still wasn't picked up. And I'm hoping that we work with staff works with GFL, and I think it's a routing problem, and them not understanding some of their homes that they need to pick up, and just maybe getting a mix-up on the route because the rest of the ward is getting picked up. So if staff could look after that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor DiMuccio.
Mr. Mayor. There was one of the questions that was actually outstanding. I didn't get an answer in the last committee of the whole when we discussed this. One of the questions that I asked staff was about the contract and why certain parts of why the contract as a whole was not made public. I think in light of some of the letters that we've seen to the editor, I think there's a lot of confusion about I guess our contract. It's very frustrating to me because I can't explain the contract to certain people, and they're writing in letters that about facts that that are not necessarily correct. If they saw the contract, they wouldn't necessarily be saying these things. So I know that I certainly appreciate certain parts of a contract being staying within council. But maybe, like I said last time, that, there's trade secrets. They don't want to share that with other competitors. But I don't see why this contract was made, confidential. And can you explain that to me through you, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Shelton?
Maybe we didn't get a response, and I know that the solicitor's not here tonight, but I didn't get that. And there's another question I had.
Mr. Shelton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As per the request at Committee of the Whole, I do have staff working on putting something together for council. They're just making sure that they are aware of the original reasons for the contract to have that confidentiality clause in it. I believe it relates to proprietary information within the contract, but we wanted to explain that and also see if the contract could be made public through the agreement of both parties, or all parties in this case, the N6 and the contractor.
Right, okay.
So we will be getting something to members of council on that in the very near future.
I appreciate that, Mr. Celio. Thank you. The other thing I wanted to say is, do we know for sure that we will be seeking remediation? I know that we've given you authority and direction, but do we know for sure this is going to be something that's going to happen, or do we still need time to make sure to look through the contract?
And also some dialogue with the Northern Six,
Yeah,
because
and
this
the
is a
dialogue.
collective
Exactly.
contract as well. Mr. Shelton, if you'd like to speak to that too, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a position that is called the MRM, I believe it is, the Municipal Relations Manager, and that is one technical representative from the Northern Six. It's currently King, and the staff have met on that to take a look at the contract, and there's an effort going on right now to compile information relative to potential penalties from all of the municipalities. So that is being pursued, and we will be reporting back to council as requested. There's also an effort going on with the 6 mayors of the municipality, convening a meeting and also having a further meeting with the president of GFL, just to ensure that the message is very clearly sent at all levels to the contractor in terms of improving performance.
Okay, and finally, I want to ask staff, we're expecting a cold snap over the next few days, a very cold snap, and I'm just concerned, have we spoken to GFL in advance of these issues, because I don't want to go down the same road?
Mr. Prentice?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the Director of Public Works did get in touch with the supervisors and the operational staff at GFL today to find out how they're preparing, and I saw an email come back that they had all their vehicles in for maintenance because it's not a collection day under their contract, so the vehicles were being taken in, given maintenance, so they should be ready for the next few days.
So GFL has said there's going to be no issues with that cold snap going forward? They didn't?
We have asked them what efforts they have taken to make sure that their fleet and their staff are fully functional and operating, and they have advised us that they are doing the maintenance in their vehicles so that they should operate for the week.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vague.
Thank you. I think Regional Councillor John Taylor made an excellent point that there were some residents in Newmarket that did not face a disruption in their garbage pickup, their waste pickup, and some, including many in many hundreds of households in Ward 1 that didn't have their waste, their recycling picked up for 2 weeks, and that was very frustrating for everyone. One of the things, and I'd like to congratulate our staff and this council about how quickly we responded to this. I believe Newmarket was the first council to act and act on this. This has affected other municipalities serviced by GFL, not just Newmarket, and reading about them in the Arrow Banner. But your Newmarket Council was acted on this very, very swiftly when the problem started arriving. I've also had, it's been mentioned a few times, both in the report and just around the council table, that and I'm going to use careful language, that we're considering penalties, financial penalties. And I've had some very frustrated members of the Ward 1 community contact me and inquire about a rebate for the lack of service, like a personal rebate. Many people out there, most people in the Newmarket community are not aware, it costs approximately per household about $1.70 a week to pick up your waste. So a rebate, a check being mailed out to you really isn't practical. It'll cost us more to administer that than to any benefit you would receive. So that's not very practical at all. But the town did incur costs too, besides the inconvenience costs and the fact that people were not getting what they were paying for. The amount of staff costs on this, we've had to micromanage this, quite frankly, for the last few weeks. That takes staff going out there all hours in their vehicles. We shouldn't have to micromanage a contract like this, and there is cost to us. There is a possibility, I should say, there's a possibility that there will be a financial penalty. And one thing I've spoken to members of council and members of staff about, I'm really concerned with this financial penalty. If it's a penalty that and some dollars go to the town and then just kind of disappears into the municipal black hole. I do want us to be creative about this, and we need to provide some restitution, some recognition for the citizens of Newmarket who paid the service, did not get the service, or were greatly inconvenienced by the service. So perhaps we can be creative with this, that if there is a financial penalty, that somehow that can go out as some sort of direct benefit to people in Newmarket as opposed to the dollars just coming into the municipal coffers. So it's something to consider, and I've had some conversations about that, but I really hope that's the direction that we go in. Thank you.
The scope and the scale of any recovery of costs and or penalties will come back to us in a report, and that will give council an opportunity to give some consideration as to how we might utilize those funds. Okay, but I think as it stands, we simply deduct that from the invoices as far as the process goes. But council will be in a position to decide how they'd like to use those funds. So that's a good suggestion. Councillor Kerwin.
Yes, Regional Councillor John Taylor raised a very, very good point. And I spoke about it in Committee of the Whole, and that is that the employees who worked for Green for Life over the last 6 weeks were absolutely exemplary. I don't know how some of them did what they did, because I followed the trucks around and tried to give them some directions, because they really didn't know where they should pick up and where they shouldn't pick up. But the workers were out there on a Friday night. Because they had missed a pickup, they were there on, I guess, on a Saturday night or Friday night or Sunday, and it was pouring rain, it was pitch black, and they were horrible working conditions. So I compliment those workers. Going along Gorham Street, whether it was a Friday night or a Saturday night when there is traffic and it's pitch black and it's raining, that's a horrible job, to be honest about it. But those workers were out there. They were trying to do the best they could with the equipment that they were given. And as Green for Life said, they had many, many trucks that were broken down and out of service. They had workers who could not report because they had been injured, because they were climbing up banks trying to retrieve blue boxes and green bins. And I just compliment the people who are on those trucks. I firmly believe that the corporation let their employees down by not having enough staff and by not having the proper trucks to provide the level of service that we're used to, because in checking with other waste management companies, they were able to do what Green for Life was not able to do. So they didn't have that, and they had all their waste material picked up on the days that they were given to pick it up. So I also like to thank, and Doug Selwood phoned me and raised a point about when we took over the contract from Turtle Island, and I'd like to ask our CAO, Bob Shelton, could we not have put a clause in there when we originally negotiated back in 2007 with Turtle Island that if they sold out, that we could abrogate the agreement with the company that bought them out? Was that ever thought about by the people who negotiated that contract? And I have the contract in my briefcase.
Mr. Shelton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know at the time we did hire expert external legal advice. In fact, a combined lawyer purchasing expert assisted us. So I would think that that was thought of. But what the contract did provide for, and I don't have the specific wording, is that if there was a change in ownership, there would be a due diligence component associated with that. And I have, subsequent to the Committee of the Whole meeting, confirmed with our, again, our municipal relations manager, staff member, at the time it was Aurora, that a process was undertaken by staff and by their legal folks to take a look at it. What we're talking about in terms of a go-forward basis, because we're looking towards the next contract, whether it's at the end of the 10-year term or sooner, to take a look at that particular clause with considerations of whether it can be passed on to another, what options that might open up for the municipality. So a due diligence process was done for the change, but there may be a change in terms of a future contract.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. I'd just like to thank Doug for his input. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Sponga.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In addition to the comments in the Era banner, I received some correspondence that perhaps asked that it be a little bit more sensitive to the workers on the field that had to deal with the weather and the conditions on the roads. I must say that although there were some very extreme conditions during a couple of days around the ice storm, that prior and after the storm, that the disruption of service did occur prior to the storm and did occur after the storm when weather and conditions were manageable. Very sensitive to personnel, and perhaps it is the fault of the corporation, as was said earlier, that the district manager came here and basically said that personnel was on a revolving door at that time, and they had to pool personnel from temp agencies in order to fill those spots and those routes. This is a national company that is involved in a number of waste management initiatives, very large waste management initiatives. And as our CAO said earlier, due diligence was put in place, and this corporation is completely able to service and maintain and make a good profit from the N6 contract. What happened here is basically just a case of an overzealous bonus-struck district manager that just wanted to turn a greater and greedy profit on the back of the taxpayers of the Northern Six and his own employees. And that's the end of the story. Hopefully they learned their lessons, and from here on it looks like garbage is being picked up normally, and we can continue to do so.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. From the very beginning, I do want to compliment our staff. So when I made my inquiries, they were up to date in terms of what was happening, and I think the whole team. I know there were some exceptional activities by individuals in responding to specific needs, but generally speaking, all of the conversations that I had throughout the situation, staff were on top of it, staff were engaging the appropriate levels within GFL, and more importantly, they knew when it was time to escalate that to the senior management team. So I think that the process was well managed by our staff at all levels, and again, with the focus on restoring service to the level that our customers have come to expect. That's our priority, and that we will appropriately seek the remedies that are available under the contract and make sure that the actions that we need to sustain the service at the level we expect are the actions that the senior management of the organization are committed to. So again, I think that everybody has done their part. Certainly I appreciate the patience of our residents, and I also appreciate the way members of council individually responded to situations within each of their own wards. And so let's hope that that doesn't happen again, but I think it just shows the stuff of this organization, and the stuff is that we're all committed to providing a high level of service to our residents. So let's not take our eye off the ball when it comes to that. Councillor DiMuccio?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important to point out, because we had this discussion a week ago, and we're sort of going over it again. But I wanted to point out, in light of some of the comments, that, you know, I've always believed that we do have a contractor, but I also believe that we need to manage that contractor. And it's important that the town knows, that the residents know that there have been ongoing emails, certainly between myself, and we've also had discussions lighthearted discussions in council. Since emails since April of last year, April, June, August, so I know that weather was not an issue. And I know that I had certainly gone back and forth to staff with emails about the management. And as a matter of fact, I believe in November, before we had issues with weather, that I had asked for a report because we were going down this road. It was getting worse and worse, the erratic patterns of garbage pickup and recycling. So I think it's important to know that this was an erratic behavior from GFL since months ago. And, you know, I know that maybe you can, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Commissioner, that I know that Chris Kalamutu has approached me with some of these emails that were as old as June. And I wanted to know what the follow-up was with GFL, because I know that the response was staff was looking into it, and that staff was you know, making sure that they were managing the contractor, but then we had these issues that were ongoing. So do you know if there's been a follow-up with Mr.
Mr. Prentice?
Thank you.
I know, through you, Mr. Mayor, that the director is going back through the email trail of when messages were passed on to staff and then were subsequently passed on to GFL as to how they were followed up and how they were dealt with. So they are working on that trail to ensure, or to, you know, verify that they were in each case dealing with them, and to identify if there were any cases where they weren't.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I look forward to reading that report because like I said, I think it's very important that, I mean, there's absolutely no excuse for GFL, and I think that their pattern was just atrocious, and we're dealing with it. But I also think that we need to make sure that you know, it's certainly my job as a council member to make sure that these things are taken care of from this level. Thank you.
Thank you. Regional Councillor?
One really quick question just dawned on me, though. This report for me that we've added in recommendations of addressing the levels of service, quality, quantity of truck staffing, preventive maintenance, so that we get a clear understanding of what they're doing in every facet to address this. The motion was 14 days. Is that 14 days from today then, I assume? So it's not 14 days from last week. I was thinking of that at the time. So 14 days starting today, but we will get that, and they're aware of it, I would assume, by now.
And I believe that's the same commitment that the N6 mayors will be seeking from the president of the corporation, who will be meeting with them on Thursday at the region.
And are they aware of this yet or not? Is GFL aware of this report that we're looking for within 14 days?
Yes, I believe so. That was confirmed back by Mr. Prentice following our conference call. Is that correct?
Yeah, we confirmed that we wanted a written explanation of their plan going forward the day after our conference call, which was a week ago Monday, or a week ago today. And we have not passed on council's motion until council passes it, but it'll go by email tomorrow.
But it'll go. Okay, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the recommendations? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Remaining item number 19. Could I have a motion with respect to the recommendations? Councillor Emanuel?
The recommendations as passed.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor Sponga. Okay, Councillor Emanuel, would you speak to them?
The recommendations in front of us deal with Glenway, and it basically prescribes a continuance of the process. As members of the public and council will recall, back in November, council gave direction to, one, reject the applications to develop the golf course lands, and then also to pursue a two-staged hearing at the board, at the Ontario Municipal Board. The first phase would deal with principle of development, and the second phase would deal with technical matters. I think all parties at the board were in agreement that it doesn't make sense to get into the technical details if the board simply can't agree that the principle of development is wise or not wise. All parties took that position. It was agreed upon at the December Ontario Municipal Board pre-hearing. So that was good news that council unanimously sought a two-stage process in November, and in December we were granted through agreement of all parties a two-staged hearing. that two-stage hearing will take place in March. And the motion in front of us directs staff to prepare for that two-stage hearing, continue preparing, that it consider mediation or settlement only once the principal is dealt with, and that staff could continue the internal preparations for any of those discussions. And this was the position shared by the Glenway Preservation Association as well. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Spong as a seconder.
The only thing I might wish to add to Councillor Emmanuel's comments is that this council made a commitment to defend its official plan at the OMB on this application, and that the motion in front of us further confirms the commitment made by council to stay the course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Kerwin.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I shall be voting against the recommendation and ask for a recorded vote. But I would like to compliment Councillor Emanuel. You've led a phenomenal resistance towards development. Everyone knows I've always been green. I've won so many awards for my stand on conservation and preservation. And I will not be prepared to discuss it at this time because there's a lot of confidential information, and I don't want to jeopardize our position at the board, not one iota. And I wish our council at the board all the best. I hope they succeed in winning on principle, and I certainly hope it doesn't go beyond that into technical, but I will be voting against the recommendation, Mr. Mayor. But I'm not prepared to discuss the reasons at this time. Well, as I said, I don't want to jeopardize our position at the board.
Thank you. Councillor DiMuccio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too will be voting against the motion, but it's Councillor Kerwin says that he is not prepared to talk about why, and I mean, I'll go a step further. We're not allowed to talk about why. This is confidential, and that's part of the frustration for me, is that I can't exactly tell you why I feel that the commitment we made is probably something that we shouldn't be going forward on anymore. You know, at the end of the day, I too think that it's wonderful to see this council and the commitment. I certainly made that commitment as well. But you know, things happen in between, and we learn new things. And at one point, you have to say, you know, at what point do you hit the brakes before the car crashes into the wall? And quite frankly, my gut tells me that this is not the direction that is really, as a whole, for the best interest of residents of Newmarket. So I will be voting against the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Twinney.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions to staff. One of the parts of this motion is to just deal with the technical issues once we deal with the principle of development. Would we still, with the application coming forward, whether we went to the OMB hearing or not, there were still technical issues outstanding that we had to deal with, that we have to work through. So whether we go to the OMB, so my question through Mr. Mayor, whether we go through the OMB or we, well, I suppose mediate, if the decision is that we can't win on the principle of development, we still have to get through those technical issues. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of the line that basically says that we're having to deal with all the technical issues anyhow, whether we go to the OMB or not prior to.
Mr. Prentice.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a application before the board and I'll call it a third-generation plan that the applicant has put forward that in order to comment on and to understand needs to be circulated to all the commenting agencies, the Conservation Authority of the region and the school board, and internally from a technical point of view. And that work will be undertaken so that we are prepared. However, the phase one of the hearing unfolds, we need to be ready for phase two if necessary. And that work is ongoing and we will be prepared.
And sorry, just to follow up through you, Mr. Mayor. So we're trying to obviously preparing just in case, obviously, so we're not prepared if the principle of development doesn't occur, that we're narrowing down those technical issues as much as possible so that we don't have to go through a process that's lengthy, keeping it as short as possible so we get those technical issues narrowed down prior as well.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussions? My own observations is if we take a look at the Committee of the Whole minutes, item number 22, and the discussion that we had earlier under regional minutes, or under regional issues, is the downfall and the challenges that are created by the Planning Act and the Ontario Municipal Board. And if there's ever a classic example of what we think we'd like to see changed in the Planning Act, it's probably Glenway. And for that reason, I will be supporting the recommendations as put forward. Mr. Clerk.
Councillor Kerwin.
Opposed.
Councillor Twinney.
In favor.
Regional Councillor Taylor.
In favor.
Councillor Hempin.
In favor?
Councillor Sponga.
In favor.
Councillor DiMuccio. Councillor Emmanuel. Mayor Van Bynen.
In favor.
And Councillor Bay.
In favor.
Motion carries.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. All right. One item remaining, and that is item number 21. Could I have a motion with respect to the recommendations? Item number 21 is the Financial Services Report, 2014 Interim Tax Billing Bylaw, and this enables us to issue an interim tax bill. Could I have a motion, please, with respect to the recommendations? Councillor Sponga, seconder.
I'll second it.
Councillor Hempin. Councillor Sponga, speaking to the motion.
This is a process bylaw that we undertake every year. We need to have this bylaw in order to send a tax bill, which I don't look forward in getting, but I will. And it's just the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hempin.
Yeah, this is more of a process thing than anything else, just as Councillor Sponga had mentioned. It's our way of implementing our tax bill.
Thank you. Councillor DiMuccio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The reason I pulled it out is because while I do understand that it is a process and it's one that I have no issue voting for that process to collect taxes, it's something that we do. The issue that I had was the amount of money that we are collecting and the levy here. The report asked council to charge the legal maximum charges of interest that a municipality is allowed to do, and that's what I was against. Not the process, but I was against the recommendation to charge the highest amount of interest rate. You know, I'm worried that, you know, we charge interest rates according to regulations. Traditionally, interest rates that are high are given to out of card holders for credit card holders, and that's because that's unsecured debt. But owning a property is secured for the town. So while I understand that we, you know, have to secure our debt, we have the ability to collect if the taxpayer defaults on that. I guess my question is through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Commissioner, to the CAO, is why are we recommending the highest possible rate for interest at this time in Newmarket? And I'm just asking because while I understand the, you know, the process of putting this, of implementing this, I don't understand why we're charging the highest possible rate. And I'm a little bit repugnant to charge high interest rates in order to you know, I don't want to be seen as trying to make money or trying to make a profit. I believe Councillor Kerwin in the last meeting said something about an $800,000, you know, we can make up to $800,000 by charging this interest rate. So could you explain that to me?
Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, maybe there's a bit of confusion around this item, and this item does not deal with the interest rate. That bylaw was adopted by council last year, and that is a bylaw that is put in place until we bring it back, and should council decide to change the 15%. So it stays in place and will be a constant. And this particular bylaw tonight deals with giving staff the authority to send out tax bills and also to levy that tax bill.
Right, and in response, Ms. Moore, I'm quite aware of what the report says here, and I'm quite aware that we did adopt the 15% a year surcharge last year, and I voted against it too. And so I think that I'm pulling it out again, because once again, I don't support a 15% surcharge, and I've asked you why we had adopted that last year, so if you can answer that.
If I could clarify, there is some confusion, because the report that we're dealing with does quote the interest rate, but the resolution itself, the bylaw itself, does not include it. And I think that's what the clerk was...
I understand that, Mr. Mayor, I understand that. But
But
what I said, I understand that, but it doesn't mean that I can't vote against that because in this report, it does say that it is a 15% surcharge
That's
a
right.
year. And I'm bringing that up because it is part of this report. And again, I will ask the question, why, even though we adopted it last year, we do this?
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that, from what the treasurer has told me, most municipalities charge that 15%, and so we are certainly not above the group. And again, when that item came forward last year, council could have decided to change that rate. So it really was up to council at that moment in time.
Okay, so the answer is that you charge that rate because other municipalities do. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was council who made the decision to
Well,
charge that rate of interest. And,
The majority of council.
and in the end, what it is it's a discouragement for council or for the municipality or for other taxpayers to underwrite late payments for other individuals. With current mortgage rates, many of the mortgages now will pay taxes to keep the rate if the borrower so chooses to do, and or add them to mortgages just to keep taxes current. So there are other options available to the residents, and it's a discouragement for the municipality to act in a funding capacity. Councillor Kerwin.
I have had the advantage of having the guidance of our former treasurer, Bob Dixon, throughout this process, and of course, Mike Mays and Eddie Moore, and I thank you. Well, what the bylaw did when we passed it last year or the year before, whatever year, assured that the town would always have cash flow. And every town needs that. You have to have a flow of cash. And therefore, the rate is set at 1.25% per month, which is 15% per year, because that rate is the maximum, but it isn't the maximum when you consider Visa cards or other lines of credit that people have at 23% or 21%. And what would happen is, and we found this, and it did happen, was that people just didn't pay their property tax, and we ran into a cash flow problem. And therefore, we have adopted that to make sure that people pay their property tax before they pay their visas. And even then, when you think of it, it's easier to pay your property tax than it is to pay your visa. And over the year, I would say we would raise about $800,000 when I went over the budget this year. About $800,000, and please correct me if I'm wrong, comes in because of the interest of people who are delinquent paying their property tax. And if we didn't have that money, and it's we don't do this for a punitive reason, we do it for a preventive, but that would be about 2 points. Instead of our tax going up this year by 2%, it would go up by 4%. And we tried to strike a tax balance that matched the consumer price index at 2%, and that's what we did. And in fact, all in, it even came below that. So if we didn't do this, there'd be another 2% on your tax bill for the people who do pay their taxes.
Thank you. Councillor Twinney.
A quick question to staff, and I don't know if you have the answer or not, but probably not may not have the exact amount, but I do believe through the provincial or the federal government, and somebody is in arrears in taxes, there's an interest rate on that similar to what we would charge. Is that correct, or do you know?
Madam Commissioner?
Mr. Mayor, I could certainly get that number for you
Maybe
tomorrow,
in,
Councillor.
future and number, I don't know when, my other question was through to you was, I don't know, is this the bylaw that comes up that we charge our interest rates? Is that come up during the beginning of the new year, or does it come up later? Is there a specific time each year that we do deal with that?
Madam Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, it used to be annually that the treasurer would bring that bylaw forward, probably around now. However, last year they did bring a bylaw where it would stand until you deemed otherwise. So it wasn't just for 1 year, it just carried on.
Okay. So through you, Mr. Mayor, perhaps I could ask for some information about, other municipalities, what they charge in interest rates, also at the income tax, if people are in arrears in that, what the interest rates are, just to get a feeling of the lay of the land on that. And also, just to follow up, do we have anything in place, say, for example, in circumstances and somebody really is in a situation where they're having difficulties and they, can't pay their taxes on time and are arrears a little bit, do we have any sort of way of addressing those sort of situations?
Madam Commissioner.
Mr. Mayor, there is a program for that as well, and I'd be glad to share the information with the councillor. And I am sure it is on our website, right. So anyone in the public would be able to view it there, or they could certainly call the office.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Kerwin.
Just in sum, Mr. Mayor, in the 35 years I've sat on council, we have never had to repossess a house, never, for taxes. I think that's a tribute to the humanity of this council and of this town, Mr. Mayor. I think that's a fantastic record.
Thank you. Councillor Sponga.
I just wanted to add to the commissioner's, excuse me, to the commissioner's answer in terms of programs. We do have a deferral program for people who cannot pay or have difficulties, and we also have a program for seniors to find it difficult as well.
Thank you. Regional Councillor.
Thanks. So I thank my colleagues for pointing out the programs that are in place. Furthermore, as has been stated, this is an issue about there's an impact on the taxpayers, the 99.9% who pay their taxes when they're due. Those people would be impacted negatively in terms of the tax levy, but also in terms of, frankly, staff time. There's if you start to relax your penalty rate or your interest rate to the point where people deprioritize it in larger numbers, we're going to have to hire people, not unlike a revenue agency, to start to chase these down, and so we prioritize on the behalf of the residents. Through this rate, we prioritize the collection of these dollars for the residents of Newmarket. But finally, and I think most importantly, this bylaw was dealt with around the tax, the percentage interest rate. What we're dealing here with is a motion that council enact a bylaw for the levy and collection of 2014 interim tax levy. We all have a right to disagree. We have a right to our opinions on different things in bylaws, but I, for one, am going to support a motion that says we should collect taxes so that we can continue to provide services for the town for this coming year. I guess we could choose not to collect taxes, but I think everybody would feel that impact.
Thank you. Councillor DiMuccio.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to clarify something a comment that Regional Councillor John Taylor made. I take exception to trying to illustrate that I don't know what I'm doing when I make a vote, but there's something called voting on principle, and I'm not voting because I don't understand the policies, and I do understand that we need to put interim tax levies, but I'm speaking on something called principle, and the principle of charging 15%, the highest rate that is legally allowed, is something that I'm opposed. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But please, do not try to instigate or try to promote the fact that I do not, that I'm voting for this because I don't think we should collect taxes. Of course we should collect taxes.
Thank
just
you.
like when we go in camera and we make sure that we certain people don't have to pay certain things. It's the same thing. I work for the taxpayers, Mr. Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you. Regional Councillor, final comments. It's a fairly straightforward item that we'd like to deal with. But
my apologies. I was not, I was not suggesting you didn't understand the issue. What I was suggesting was that we have a motion in front of us to collect taxes. and that we need to collect taxes, and that I think we, as a council, I believe we need to support that so we can continue to provide the services to the town. What I was suggesting was that speaking to your concern is appropriate here. Anything is it's in your discretion, but we did have the bylaw. You did vote against it before. We're aware of your concern, but now we're talking about a motion to collect taxes. That's what I was saying. I wasn't saying that you didn't understand it in any way, and I'm sorry if you construed it that way.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all those in favor? Now, was that a recorded vote? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. I believe that deals with all of the items that were contained in the minutes of our regular committee of the whole. We also had a closed session, and I'm working on item number 6 now from the agenda. Could I have a motion, please, that the minutes of the committee of the whole closed session of January 13th afternoon session be approved? Councillor Sponga, Councillor Emanuel. All those in favor? Okay.
Mr. Sponger move it?
Yes.
He wasn't at that meeting today. Oh, I'm
The
sorry.
13th.
Okay, my apologies.
13th, yes. Yep. Nope. Thank you. So what happened in the closed session is that we received the benefit of solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and it was discussions that related to the waste collection contract. And the Director of Legal Services and our municipal solicitor provided legal advice surrounding the GFL service update. We're now dealing with item number 7. Item number 7, in part, is the addendum, and it relates to the committee of the whole that we had today, based on items that we could not deal with on the 13th. So we have, what I would ask is that the committee of the whole minutes of January 20th be ratified, and in doing so, we're dealing with 2 items. One is the Engineering Services Report 2013-49, which is an extension of the contract for the checking consultant, and also for ratification, the Corporate Services Joint report with IT Services, and that is the voting method options for the 2014 municipal elections. Does anyone wish to deal with these separately, or can we deal with these by consent?
2013-49 separately, as I stated earlier.
Okay, well, if there's only 2 items, we'll deal with each separately then. Okay, so we'll let's start with the I think it was item number 1, and that is the voting methods option. The voting methods option, the recommendations to be adopted or to be ratified is at the January 20th, 2014 presentation of the Director of Legislative Services to Council be received, that Council endorse option 1, which is the use of the optic scan vote tabulators for the 2014 municipal election, and that Council refer option number 2, which is the use of internet voting, to the 2018 election to be reviewed within the first 12 months of the next term of Council, and that a bylaw be brought forward for consideration by Council to authorize the use of alternative voting equipment for the 2014 municipal election in accordance with Section 42(1) of the Municipal Elections Act, and I believe that's the vote tabulators that this is referencing. Could I have a motion with respect to it? Moved by Regional Councillor, seconded by Councillor Kerwin. You wish to speak to it, Regional Councillor?
I'll just be very brief. We've been through this issue several times, quite a bit of public consultation, actually a lot of public consultation. I think in the end my position, and I think it's in the position of the majority of council reflected in this motion, is that that this certainly has, and thanks staff for the great deal of work they did on this, but this certainly has merit for investigation for 2018, but that for 2014, given that we're already currently in that election year, and that candidates have begun filing, that a shift of this significance perhaps would not be a perfect optic for one thing, but secondly, I think it's also a very tight timeline to implement, and more importantly, to engage the community in that change and their understanding and their enthusiasm for it. and a period of time to make sure that the concerns of residents and that have voiced that in the community about the security, et cetera, can be addressed fully and thoroughly so that people are very comfortable with this kind of change. There's maybe 30, 40 communities in Ontario out of over 400 communities in Ontario that have gone in this direction, but vast majority have not yet. And I think we can take our time and deal with this next term. So it will be brought before the next term of council for consideration early in the term so that people can make a decision well in advance, allowing enough time for consultation, public engagement, implementation, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerwin?
John, thank you very much. I'm echoing the sentiments of the majority of the residents of my ward, and they're very comfortable with the way that we have been voting, and that is by ballot and behind a box where they have their privacy, the way they vote. I will be voting to continue that system, but I realized we added the amendment that we get proper lead-in time, which we didn't have right now. We only had a few months. That's not enough, and the new council will have that lead-in time, and hopefully they'll be operating in 2018. But at this point, it was just premature. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manuel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I recognize I'm probably going to be on the losing side of this vote, as I was this afternoon, but nonetheless, it's something I do believe in, and I have a level of comfort in what staff put forward to deal with security questions and concerns with their proposed security audit process with the firm that we would engage. But secondly, I also don't have the concerns on timelines. As members of council recall, it was ourselves who unanimously asked staff to explore this fall. So I don't know that staff could have turned around a response detailed, frankly, an incredibly thorough public consultation in a shorter period. Perhaps maybe then we shouldn't have supported at that time asking staff to explore it, but it was council that gave unanimous direction in the fall to look at implementing for 2014. And just finally, let me state that I think this is a missed opportunity. I think in this day and age, when people do their banking online, they do their shopping online, I think they should be able to vote online. We see it work in so many jurisdictions. Markham has done it very successfully, and we've had the great benefit of our current clerk who worked in Markham and helped implement that system, and we would have benefited from that knowledge. Nonetheless, I think, again, it's a missed opportunity to engage people who are living busier and busier lives, and to give people that flexibility to vote over a period of time, the comfort of their home, which I would suggest is the ultimate privacy, or at their work, or but also we provided the option that they could show up at a polling station, which I fully concede is what I would do, because I like to show up and vote at a polling station on election day. But I think there are many people that that may have exercised their right to vote if there was a greater flexibility. So, thank you. I will not be supporting the recommendation, as I'd like to see this engaged for the 2014 election.
Thank you. Councillor Twinney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't be supporting the move forward of online voting for this election. It's my concerns really aren't around as much the time frame as it is about the just the how we're going to lay it out, and the differentiation of the different municipalities, how they're putting it forward. Markham still is having 100 polls with paper ballots, I believe. Stratford, Chatham, Kent, Thames Centre, there's 5 areas there. They're only doing it for the advanced polls. And we were going to lay it out for all across the board. So my concern was just putting it out there as their first time putting it out there as online voting only across the board. The AODA Alliance, I looked into, their website. They're definitely in favor of it. Provincial legislation hasn't moved forward with it yet, and there's no provincial legislation that covers it, especially if there's a recount. The other concern I had was the opening of the voting the day that our candidates' names go in. Therefore, I felt that part of it was the fact that it could cause a bit of a disadvantage to new candidates. Certainly an advantage to incumbents like ourselves, but a disadvantage to new candidates. So I think moving forward, I think it gives us time for next time, if it's the first part of the 2014, the new term of council, we can take that time now to look at what other municipalities, what their procedures were in 2014, and hopefully lay out something in 2018 that everyone feels comfortable. There's still a level of discomfort with security issues like that, and hopefully by 2018 those new technology or those kind of feelings amongst the residents will not be as strong. So I won't be supporting it this time, but I do look forward to it coming back in the first part of the next term of council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerwin?
Yeah, just in sum, Mr. Mayor, at the public meeting that we held, I was there, and I asked our director, actually, of Legal Services, Andrew Brower, who's now our clerk, if we could phase it in. In other words, if nominations close on the 12th, you didn't have to necessarily start to vote on that date. You could have staggered that. We could have set the timing. Is that not correct, Andrew? Okay, so we could have started on the 20th or the 19th or whatever it might be. So, but also I request a recorded vote, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Emanuel?
And I'd be remiss, and I raised this earlier, I actually think fundamentally this is not a decision that technically that I think council should be decided on. I think this should be a delegated authority, and this is more just a matter of principle as well. You know, you certainly wouldn't get in Ontario MPPs standing up determining what system they should implement or not implement. You know, that's rightly given to Elections Ontario. Federally, Elections Canada mandates that. I think you get into tricky territories when you get the elected officials themselves debating what sorts of policies. And I'll admit, I have a bias towards one system, and perhaps I'm just as guilty as that. But nonetheless, I think maybe go forward, one of the considerations should be decisions related to elections and how they're structured in Newmarket, where polling stations are, number of polling stations, et cetera. I actually think council should give consideration to delegating that authority to our legislative services staff so that they can make unbiased and I think prudent decisions. And I think that I'd like council to consider in future as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, was there a request for a recorded vote? Okay. Recorded vote then, Mr. Clerk.
Councillor Kerwin.
In favor.
Councillor Twinney.
In favor.
Regional Councillor Taylor.
In favor.
Councillor Hempin.
In favor.
Councillor Sponga.
In favor.
Councillor DiMuccio. Councillor Emanuel.
Opposed.
Councillor Vey.
In favor.
Mr. Mayor.
In favor.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We have one other item that requires ratification, and that is the report number 2013-49, and that's the checking consultants, the extension of the contract. The recommendations that are that were adopted by committee today is that council approve the execution of a professional consulting services agreement between R.J. Burnside and Associates Limited for a period of up to 2 years from the date of council approval to provide checking consulting services at preferred client discount rates adjusted annually in accordance with industry standards, and that staff report back to council after a year and a half of the checking consultant services contract, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the professional services contract, and that the R.J. Burnside be notified of the action. Could I have a motion with respect to those recommendations, please? Regional Councillor, seconded by Councillor Vey. Regional Councillor, speaking to the motions.
Thank you. Just, could you just clarify for the option about the year and a half? Did that, the report, oh, thank you.
That staff report back to council after a year and a half, and that's in preparation of, in advance of the 2-year. Yeah.
Considering options for the, options for consideration of that contract at the 2-year period, but, okay. Yeah, I just briefly state, particularly for the viewing audience and people here, that this was brought forward by staff. They had a series of concerns about the fit and the timing of this contract. This is essentially extending or sole sourcing a contract. The recommendation was for 5 years, and council decided to earlier today, and depending on what's ratified tonight, to recognize that particularly one point of staff's argument, which was, I think, particularly challenging for the corporation, which is that we have 2 of our 3 senior directors in this area that are very new to our organization, and to bring in a new checking consultant and part of our development coordination committee and have that much turnover of such an important role in our community at one time would leave a great deal of challenges in terms of file knowledge, historical understanding of various developments, understanding of the policies related, and a great deal of criteria that we apply in these scenarios. And so that, we did not want to, at least council earlier this afternoon as a whole did not want to sole source for a full 5 years, recognizing that other companies in the region have a right, unless the extreme circumstances, to enter into a competitive bidding process. Competitive bidding processes can bring, often will and should bring the best prices, et cetera. Council decided to sort of take a middle-of-the-road approach, addressing the staff's concern, but not sole sourcing for the full 5 years. It'll come back to council in a year and a half of the report for the 2-year renewal, or what I believe should be an RFP at that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vague speaking.
Yep. Just again, very briefly, I don't think anyone on this council is generally in favor of a sole sourcing any contract. We all do prefer the a request for proposal process. In this case, as Regional Councillor Taylor has mentioned, because we have 2 relatively new staff, two directors, if we made the switch right now, I can see this actually costing us see a lot of delays, costing us a lot of dollars, causing a great frustration for everyone out there in the community and on this council, quite frankly. It is, we will be going with some sort of RFP, but we are delaying that from about 18 to 24 months, just because if we went through that process right now, as I said, I can see that costing us a tremendous amount of money, a tremendous amount of frustration. I can see errors being made, et cetera. It's just not wise to go through that process right now. So we do support the principle of RFPs, and we are loath to go with sole sourcing, but sometimes circumstances make you act practically. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor DiMuccio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had this discussion earlier this afternoon, and I don't want to get into it too much, but I do have some new questions. But I will say that I won't be supporting the recommendation before us, and I think it's important to know that the town of Newmarket has a policy, and that is that we only do sole source tenders, or we give staff authorization for that for anything under $25,000, and this doesn't fit that criteria. We had some discussions earlier in council today about RJ Burnside, and I have some questions for you, Mr. Mayor, to staff. First of all, RJ Burnside is an independent contractor. Is that correct? They work independently of the town, because you do mention here in your report that your concern is by adopting a new consultant that you will have problems with certain files that we already have, that we already are working on, and with 2 new directors, that there might be some level of, I guess it wouldn't streamline the continuation of those files. It would cost us money. But I'm just trying to figure out that how involved is RJ Burnside with our staff on all of our files? Because we were told today that we are billed independent. They're billed directly from the developer. So I'm assuming that the developer deals with them more than the town deals with the developer. Is that correct?
Thank you. Mr. Prentice, this afternoon we received a good overview in terms of the principle of why do we engage a consultant to respond to the volumes. For the benefit of our audience, could you outline the principle first of engaging the professional consultant, and then we can also deal with the question that's been put forward.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there are many different purposes for which we engage consulting engineers in the town, and one of the largest, perhaps the largest, is a practice that the town has had for many years to outsource the review and checking of development applications for against the town standards and for engineering standards, and the administration and inspection of their installation as developments occur across town. And that decision was taken many years ago, using a private firm, R.J. Burnside Associates at the current time, for the purpose of ensuring that we would have the resources when we need them, when they're necessary, when we're at a busy time, but we weren't holding a large number of staff and paying for them at times when they were not needed. So it was a way of getting a higher level of service for the residents and for the development industry in the town without having to have a large staff. It was an outsourcing. So as a private contractor, they are work hand in hand with the town and on a daily basis on every application. And they conduct a review of the application for all the engineering standards, receive documents from the applicants, provide comments to staff. Staff vet the comments in our own engineering department and planning department and building department. And then on a every 2-week basis, we have a development coordination meeting between the town staff and Burnside and the applicants to go over those matters and to ensure that the proper regulations are going in our subdivision agreements and the proper inspection, our site plan agreements and in our draft plan approvals, and that in addition, matters of inspection as the service is installed are being properly followed up. So R.J. Burnside and as our consultant, as was the previous consultants in that role, intimately aware of the development industry in Newmarket from a subdivision and major development point of view. So it is a very close and a very detailed role. They do provide invoices for the services that they provide. Those are paid by the developer. The invoices come to the municipality, they're checked by the engineering department, and then they're sent by the finance department to the developers for payment. I know that because I hear about them. And so they are looked at very carefully, and we also do monitoring of R.J. Burnside, like all our other consultants, to certain performance standards in terms of the turnaround time for comments on matters so that our development industry is not being held up. And in doing an outsourcing in that manner, I think that we have been able to, after discussing it with our developers, provide a level of service that is higher and faster and more efficient than if we tried to provide it with in-house services. So they are very familiar and very intimately involved in the development approvals and also the supervision of development. We keep a close eye on how they are performing, and we also keep a close eye on the costs and how they are being allocated to our development industry, because if there was a situation where they were not performing properly, the developers look at those bills very closely also and question us very detailed on what they're paying for and why they have to pay it. So that is how the system has worked for all the time that I think both the CAO and I have been working for the municipality. And it has been directed towards the development that is ground-related, meaning subdivision. The municipality is in a position where we have maybe 3 or 4 significant ground-related subdivisions left to be developed in the town. And it is quite amount of work to have a consultant understand our processes, understand our servicing plans, understand how our transportation network and servicing networks work together, and be up to date and efficient in terms of responding. So we look forward over the next couple of years to seeing the horizon of the ground development in Newmarket, and where that role would probably have to change, and we would have to put out a different type of RFP for a different type of service, because we won't be doing subdivision approvals in the very long term.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. I believe we had that conversation when Councillor Kerwin asked you earlier this afternoon whether we were managing the contractor, and I sort of got a bit of a different answer tonight. So, anyways, I'm not gonna deal with that, because my question was actually that if you're feeling that we can't, that the issue here is that it would cost us money if we went against our policy and opened up an RFP to elicit some competition, you're saying that we would end up losing money because we have a couple of new staff members. But what I don't understand is, and maybe I'm wrong, but is there a process where, you know, you have outstanding files and, you know, during that process you have the original contractor I guess, finish those files off, and then when you open an RFP, that you can manage a new contract with that new consultant and say, you know, these are the new files going forward. I mean, I just thought that was a process that most companies use, and I'm just wondering, doesn't it apply to us, or I'm just trying to figure out why it's so complicated.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, we did go through the process some time ago of changing, we'll call him a checking consultant. That's what we called R.J. Burnside. And that process was where the former checking consultant carried through much of the work in finishing the subdivisions that they had been involved in, and the new checking consultant Burnside took up the new ones as they appeared. One of the challenges is that this work can occur over many, many years. And as we know, we have some subdivisions that take 10 years to build out, and they're over many phases. And so to transfer those types of files and to transfer the knowledge and transfer the inspection is a challenging. It would take time between the two consultants and with town staff. And also, so that would be a bit of a cost and a duplication. And one of the others would be, because Burnside are experienced with two new directors, our new directors would have a challenge in bringing a new consultant up to date in terms of how we expect them to operate and the town standards. Lastly, if we did, there is the fact that if we do change consultants, you do have to go through a period of training them so that they get up to speed as to what our standards are, how our services work, how our transportation network is, and what our sequence of subdivision development and policies and how they're implemented. So
Right.
there are maybe 3 different aspects that would, in changing the consultant, be a challenge in terms of service to the development industry, service to the home buyers, and the amount of work required of the 3 directors involved in development, and probably costs through inefficiencies in the municipality.
Right, but you know, you did say that some of these projects are, you know, ongoing and over 10 years, and we certainly have new projects that we just implemented, like Slessor Square, and you know, we have something on Main Street, and I would imagine that would take 10 years. So are you telling me that, you know, we won't be having any new tenders for at least 10 years because of these new projects? I mean, I guess my concern is we don't really have to go into this too much because I've already made my comments at an earlier meeting today. But I just want the public to know that I'm not going to be supporting it because I believe that, you know, we have a policy in place and those policies are there for a reason. And I know that this council, you know, appreciates the rules and the policies, and sometimes we change them. But I just believe that it doesn't really fit the bill, not to my satisfaction anyways. I think that we could streamline some of these projects that we have, and you know, I also believe in competition. That's why we have contracts, and that's why contracts end, and that's why we put out a tender to make sure to see if we can get some competition going. And I certainly have appreciate what you said,
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Commissioner. I do appreciate what you said, but I do have a lot of developers who do contact me and say, and I know that you know that I've had to get involved because there were some certain costs that you weren't aware of, and I had to bring it up. So I believe certain council members have said similar about you know, some of their the costs that we're charging developers.
Thank you.
They're charging.
Thank you, Councillor. I have you at 11 minutes now.
I would
Well, I
ask
do
for
know
a
there were some
recorded vote,
questions.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Prentice, so I do want to clarify that while our policy does require an RFP, does our policy also provide for circumstances under which we would consider sole sourcing?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, our procurement bylaw states that purchases are competitively priced. Then it provides for situations where there may be standardization, or there may be specialized knowledge, or there may be a restriction in the availability, where for reasons and the criteria set out in the policy, you can decide as a council that it is in the municipality's best financial position and best service position not to do a competitive but to sole source. Those are not the general, they are the exception, and anything that is over $25,000 has to be approved by council. So it does get the political scrutiny that the members of council can provide. The only other thing that I didn't mention when we were speaking earlier is that We do hire engineering firms for a lot of projects. We do between $4 and $5 million worth of road work every year. Generally, a design and administration contract runs between 15% and 20% for those. And the contractor, the checking consultant contractor, does not bid for those. They are all competitively priced out to other engineering firms, and we normally have 2 or 3 working on those, different firms working those projects every year.
Thank you. Councillor Manuel.
Thank you. Again, briefly, 2 things. One, I do support this because it is lower than what was initially proposed at the 5 years. I think this represents a better balance. I think almost everyone around the table today expressed a desire to see contracts of this magnitude RFP'd, but there was also a recognition that with our 2 directors that this consultant reports directly or liaises directly with have only joined our municipality in the past couple of months. That is an absolutely prudent use of the sole sourcing provision, and that's the follow into the second point. I just want to make sure there's no confusion that what's being proposed absolutely conforms to our policies, that council has the ability, with those exceptions, to award sole sourcing, and I appreciate staff clarifying that because this is one of those unique circumstances where, in fact, it could actually cost us more money, but there's also a desire of council to not see it go a 5-year extension, rather a 2 years, and as Councillor Hempen added some language earlier today, that we'd review this at the 1.5-year point so that the next council would have adequate opportunity to give direction on how they want to see this file transpire. Thank you.
Thank you. Regional Councillor.
Yeah, I just want to state and reiterate to a certain degree, but I think it's important to understand. First of all, the staff bring forward sole sourcing recommendations on a tiny, tiny percentage of the overall work we do in this municipality. On top of that, I think it's fair to say, and I think staff would recognize, that myself and council as a whole have on numerous occasions pushed back on that and said either no or constrained the situation. So I think it's fair to say as a council we're very cautious about sole sourcing. However, it exists as a policy option here and at every level of government, and is utilized here and at every level of government occasionally when warranted. And certainly, I think, for myself as one member of council, has been explained with these 2 senior members, it gives us the opportunity to just delay the contract or extend the contract for a period of time so we're sure that they're as up to speed on these files as a new consultant would come in. So I think that's a very reasonable extension. However, 5 years was not justified by this council. I do have one question for staff. Do we have a policy that states that you cannot sole source under $25,000?
Mr. Commissioner.
Under, yeah. I mean, I don't believe we do, but I mean, I just want to be sure.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor.
Madam Commissioner.
Thank you. There is a procurement bylaw which does set out the instances where sole source or single source can occur, and but I myself am not aware of any policy that says you cannot sole source. In fact, the bylaw does speak to in what circumstances you can single or sole source.
So I believe what we have is a policy that says staff can, under their own authority, sole source under $25,000. Anything above that must come to council, which is not the same as saying we're breaking policy because you cannot. Our policy does not allow for sole sourcing under $25,000. That's the point I'm making. You don't need to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for making that point. And just one point for the public. You've heard ad nauseum now the reason why we're basically extending a contract. We're using the word sole source. But really what we're doing is we're extending a contract for perhaps 18 months because of the circumstances. All we're really doing is delaying the RFP process for this, and that has to be clear to the public too. It's a contract that is basically what's coming up for renewal, and we felt this was not the right time to go with an RFP process for the reasons that have been given by my colleagues. Quite frankly, it'd be quite disruptive, and going through that process now could lead us to be making mistakes, could increase costs to taxpayers. So all we're doing is delaying this process until our new directors, who are very qualified and have quite a bit of experience, but they just don't have a lot of experience here with the town, just bring them up to speed, and then we think we would be in a much better position to go into the RFP process. So I just want to stress that for the public, that all we're doing is delaying something for a few months, that nobody around this table wants to perpetuate indefinitely a sole source contract. That's not what's happening.
Thank you. Councilor DiMuccio, final comments, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of questions and then a comment through you to the Commissioner. When did the contract come up again? Was it February 2013, I believe?
Mr. Prentice.
I believe that's correct. It was February of 13, I
So
believe.
February 2013 is when the contract came up for renewal. And when did the two directors, when were they hired?
One director of Public Works was, I believe, in May, and I believe the director of engineering, whom this contract falls under, was in September.
So the contract came up for renewal February 2013, and then you didn't put a new RFP out, or you didn't come to council that the contract was up, and then you hired two new directors. So I guess I just question the way that this was conducted. If our contract is up, then why did you not come to council? Because now you're coming to council saying, well, we got to extend this contract because we have two new directors, but the contract was up before you hired two new directors. So I'm just trying to find out why that process wasn't followed.
Yeah. The work requirements of the director responsible for it, the previous director, he was concentrating on other matters and had not brought it forward when the contract expired.
Okay, so then, is it fair to say then, in light of what you just told me, that we are actually asking for an extension because the process of staff coming to council with, with recommendations for a new tender, that a new contract is up, wasn't followed, and because we didn't do that, we are now in a position where we could lose money because we did hire two new directors. Is that correct?
Not at all, Mr. Mayor.
Why?
Okay, thank you.
The report came back to council at the time where the new director was able to schedule that work and conduct the necessary review with the staff and with the consultant, and that was not achieved under the former administration with the previous director.
Why was it not achieved is what I'm trying to find out.
Mr. Mayor, I could not answer that question in open session.
Well, fine, but what I'm trying to explain is that this was an issue, an internal staff issue. This was not because we hired two new directors.
Well,
anyways, you know
Mr.
what?
Sheldon,
This is confidential. That's fine, Mr. Mayor. But I want to say this. I just want to read the report here in front of us because I think the regional councillor was making some comments about procurement, and I want people to know here that the competitive bid process with the town can be justified by meeting only one of the clauses in the town's procurement bylaw. Okay, now it goes on to say that there are 4 clauses that the town sees that are legitimate so that we could extend this contract. But procurement for goods and services or construction of any contract value without competitive bid process. Can you explain to me, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Commissioner Moore, what the procurement bylaw is that is justified by one of the clauses? Because it says here, without a competitive bid process that could be justified by meeting only one of the clauses in the town's procurement bylaw. So why did this, what is that, what's?
Madam Commissioner?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to see the wording that the councillor is referring to, and I just don't have
It's in the report that you wrote,
in front of me.
That was this afternoon's report.
Agenda. Yeah. I could.
Can you please read the wording again, councillor?
What page is that?
25, she said. The answer's on the following page.
I've heard, Mr. Mayor, I have heard another member of council say that the answer to the question posed is on the following page of that report. And it looks as though Commissioner Prentice outlined 4 sub-clauses.
Right, and that's what I said, but I'm trying to find out, because regional councilor was asking about what, procurement. I'm trying to find out what is it, is there a monetary amount for procurement when we go through sole source contracting? Is there, I know that we passed a bylaw on that.
I think if we need to have a better understanding of the procurement processes, we could have a separate meeting on that. But my understanding, perhaps if I'm wrong, I'll clarify that, but anything under $25,000, staff has the authority to give consideration to a sole source. Exactly. Anything over $25,000 requires council's consent, which is precisely what we're pursuing right now. I think we've had plenty of discussion on the issue, and I'd like to bring the issue to a close.
No, I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm glad you said that. That's exactly what I was trying to get.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shelton?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I guess I was going to make the a similar point that the bylaw that governs purchasing has reasons where it's appropriate to provide for either a sole source or a single source, and there is a threshold where that can be done through a delegated approval to staff, and that is done very rarely. Our preference is to get competitive pricing. Above that threshold, those same provisions still apply in terms of it being there being acceptable reasons to recommend that, but staff bring those reports to council for approval. And I did want to point out, as Commissioner Anita Moore pointed out, there are 4 reasons set out in the report that staff feel support the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hempin, final comments, please, and we'll put the question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, it's my first comment, so thank you.
Thank you.
My question is to our, through you, Mr. Mayor, to our Commissioner of Infrastructure, Mr. Rob Prentice, and that is we realize we've lost our engineer, our chief engineer for the town of Newmarket. And when did we lose our chief engineer?
Mr. Prentice?
Mr. Mayor, I'd say that was in the early spring. I believe that was in the early spring of last year, so 2013.
Thank you. And now we went through a process where the town has hired a new chief engineer for our town for the town of Newmarket, and we have part of the reason why has been recommended to us to extend the contract. And maybe I'll ask it in a question. I'm not an engineer, but we've retained a new engineer. There's a large workload and a caseload and history on development that's happened in the past. And I'm going to ask our Commissioner of Infrastructure, do you feel that our chief engineer is in a position right now to handle the workload and understand the cases in front of her that are required from her in her position, in her new position?
Mr. Prentice?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the services of R.J. Burnside are there because the town engineer does not have all of the resources, nor the time, nor the ability to keep track of each detailed matter in each subdivision agreement or site plan agreement that the contracting engineer does. And it would take some time and probably additional staff with the town of Newmarket in the absence of that contract with R.J. Burnside, considerable time for any engineer, whether they had been in another municipality. It would take some time for them to get up to speed and to be able to fulfill that contract. Certainly a number of months, at least 18 months.
So it would be fair to say that our new chief engineer, after 1 year, would have a greater knowledge of the case workload?
Yes, they would.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call the question. Mr. Clerk?
Councillor DiMuccio? Opposed. Councillor Emmanuel? In favor. Councillor Bay? In favor. Councillor Kerwin? In favor. Councillor Twinney? In favor. Regional Councillor Taylor?
In favor.
Councillor Hempin?
In favor.
Councillor Sponga?
In favor.
Mr. Mayor?
In favor.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I think that deals with the items. No, it doesn't. There was also a closed session report, and the closed session report dealt with a matter that was deferred on January 13th to January the 20th. And I would like to have a motion, please, that the joint CAO and Commissioner of Development and Infrastructure Services report dated January 6th regarding a property matter be received, and that the recommendations of the joint CAO and Commissioners on the report as amended be adopted. Could I have a motion to that effect, please? That's the, moved it, Councillor Emmanuel, seconded?
This is coming from where?
This is coming from this afternoon.
This afternoon.
This afternoon. Seconded? Councillor Kerwin. Wish to speak to that, Councillor Emmanuel? Councillor Kerwin? Okay. All those in favor? And that is carried. Now with Council... Opposed? Thank you. Sorry. There's one other item, and I thank the clerk for helping me identify that. That is with respect to the meeting of January the 13th. We did deal with the first item in the closed session, but there was a second item. Item number 2 was the legal advice that we received with respect to the Glenway development application. And so I'd like a motion, please, to that the report of corporate services 2014-1 regarding Glenway development and its appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board be received, and that staff continue to provide council with regular updates, including financial reporting, leading up to and throughout the OMB. Could I have a motion? Councillor Manuel, seconded by Councillor Sponga. All those in favor? And that is carried, so that resolves those items. I believe we've dealt with all of the reports of committee and staff, Mr. Clerk. Okay, that's correct. We have bylaws. Bylaws number 2014-1 through 2014-5. Councillor DiMuccio, you had raised earlier concerns with respect to 2014-4. We can deal with that separately. It's listed as 6, but it should be as 4. It's a typographical error. And that's the one with respect to the appointment of an integrity commissioner? That's the one I think you want to deal with? Okay, so we'll deal with that separately. Is there any other bylaws that any member wishes to deal with separately? Okay, could I have a motion, please, with respect to the bylaws? Yeah, yeah. Okay. Who seconded that? Could I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor V? Didn't catch it? Okay, Councillor V? All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Item number 2014-4. Could I have a motion with respect to what's being proposed in that resolution? Moving the bylaw? Okay. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Manuel. Discussion? Councillor Sponga? Discussion, Councillor Manuel? Councillor DiMuccio?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This actually has to do more with our procedural bylaw, and I need to go back because this recommendation was taken from a prior report that was brought to our committee, and certain items from that report have been implemented in this bylaw, and there has been no discussion on council. Now, I'd like to give you some background, Mr. Mayor. I refer you specifically to Section 18, subsection A, Item B, which stipulates that the purpose of Committee of the Whole is for determining items requiring discussion. And as you know, we had a report that was a draft code of conduct, and this council had asked staff to come back to a report. This bylaw was supposed to come to council on December 2nd, and in fact, the town had asked for the public's comments before October 31st and underwent lots of different I guess, methods to get those public comments by October 31st. You posted a draft of this Council of Conduct on your website. Mr. Mayor, sorry, the clerk's office said, and I quote in an era, in a newspaper article, that it was, quote, an agenda spearheaded by the commissioners, legal department, and legislative department. And you, Mr. Mayor, also said that a lot of research went into this code of conduct and into this document, and that it needed to be updated. So we received all the feedback from the public by October 31st, and then suddenly, on December 23rd, we received an internal staff report. There are actually 2 reports that we received from the staff on December 23rd and one on January 16th. And before I go on, Mr. Mayor, through you, to the clerk, to the clerk, are these reports online? Are they available to the public? Are they on our website?
Mr. Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, all town information reports are on the website.
Okay, so the staff report, okay. The report that we received on December 23rd was to basically ask this council, and there was no discussion here at the committee, but it was an internal staff report saying that although we have made this draft code available for public comment until the end of October, that staff decided that because we're in the last year of office, the last term, that they suggested that the draft code now be held until the next term of council so that we could have a fulsome discussion and input from new council members. And quite frankly, I need to voice my opinion in opposition to setting this review aside after all the work that we've implemented. Certainly staff has put a lot of work into it. We've asked feedback from the public. The responses that I've received clearly show that there's ample support in reforming the code. And, I was elected in a 4-year term of office. I don't plan on spending the next few months as in a lame duck mode. We are here to make decisions. You put money and resources and time in reports, and those reports should come back to council, not an email that's internal to council saying we're going to put this off. And then the regional council, I know, replied to that saying that he agreed fully. And again, my concern is that the public is not seeing these discussions. So when we have advice from staff in an email on an agenda item and another member of council saying, I agree with it, the problem with that is that the public is not seeing these discussions. So I guess to make a story short here, I don't understand why this bylaw was not presented to council along with the rest of the Code of Conduct report, as was stated by staff, that you were going to bring it back to council. And I don't understand why you think that we can't make this decision now, why you think that we should wait until another term of office. The other thing, too, is very important here. You had said in your second report that staff said that, quote, there have been times in the past that a public consultation process has been undertaken, such as this, whether staff initiated or council requested, and this has proven to be extremely valuable exercise. However, in some instances, the comments received do not relate to the matter under review, or some of these comments are frivolous or vexatious, intended to harass, as an example.
Okay,
And then you
Councillor-
go on, but wait
yeah,
a minute,
no,
Mr.
no,
Mayor, this is
Councillor,
important.
I know it is important, and I appreciate that, and there's an option. Number one is that on an information report, any member of council can ask for an information report to be brought to committee of the whole for discussion. A lot of the reference materials and the references that you're making, I don't believe are available to all members of council at this point, so
Yes, they are,
I don't
Mr.
think,
Mayor.
well, I don't have the
Well, Mr.
report
Mayor,
you're
if
referencing.
you allow me to finish talking, then I will explain that
Okay,
you also
I
got
will-
a council code of conduct public
Councillor,
feedback.
yep, just a minute. If you just let me explain, I'm trying to find a
Mhm.
solution for you. What we might do is take this resolution and defer that to the next committee of the whole so that the information can come forward.
That's
And
exactly
then
what I'm asking you.
maybe if you'd move to defer this to the next committee of the
Mr.
whole.
Mayor, I appreciate that, and I'm
Okay.
sorry if I was getting a little bit ahead of me, but I was just
Okay, well,
worried
that's-
that
I
you
was
would
just trying to
not
find a solution.
support that resolution. And if you don't support that resolution, I need to make sure the public understands what the background is. So,
Okay,
should
so
I put the
let's
motion forward
put the
right
motion
now?
to defer, and that would
Okay.
take precedence to the motion that's on the floor.
But the motion to defer, Mr. Mayor, is not just this bylaw. The motion is to bring back this code of conduct to this table as we had promised residents on December 2nd.
So
That is the motion as
Okay.
well.
So you can add that, but I would prefer that we would deal with this and bring it back and provide a direction to staff that would bring all of that information forward. But from a procedural point of view, I believe we should be dealing with a deferral of that resolution, if that's your intent, and then whatever council's wish is going forward from there. So I'll entertain that as a motion to defer the resolution, and then under new business, we can deal with the balance of those issues. So do you have a seconder for this motion to defer that bylaw?
Is it deferral of the bylaw or a resolution?
Well, it's a bylaw that we're dealing with.
Okay. fine.
Okay, sorry,
I'll
I used the wrong term. So I would entertain a motion to defer the bylaw to the next committee of the whole, and under new business, we can deal with the balance of the information that you're seeking. Okay? So is there anybody, are you seconding that, Councillor Twinney? Okay. Any discussion with respect to the deferral? Call that, the next committee of the whole, I believe. Does that work, Mr. Sheldon? Can we do that? If it's a matter of gathering a number of reports that are apparently available for consideration, that's doable?
Yes, that is, Mr. Mayor, and the information reports would be included if council wishes.
Okay, thank you. Regional Councillor, to the deferral? No? All those in favor of the deferral? Opposed? The deferral carried. So that bylaw is deferred to the next committee of the whole. Notices of motion. Councilor DiMuccio?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm tabling a notice of motion regarding the composition of committees of the Council of Newmarket.
The notice of motion regarding the composition of
committees for the Council of Newmarket. This will be coming in the, not the next committee, but it will be in the March Committee of the Whole. I'm just giving notice of motion now.
Thank you. Any others? Councillor Sponga?
Just a suggestion, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor DiMuccio, that as we're bringing back the bylaw that we dealt with earlier at Committee of the Whole, it might be also opportune, or the right opportunity here to make a notice of motion in relation to the information reports that would accompany that bylaw.
Which bylaw? We could deal with that.
The bylaw that was deferred to the next committee of the whole.
Yeah. So,
Under new business, you told
yeah, we could deal with it under new business without requiring a notice of motion. I believe there's sufficient direction to staff there. Okay. Any other notices of motion? Okay. Announcements, community events. Councillor Mannion? Okay. Councillor DiMuccio?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had written something down here as well that I have to add. Good evening. The Newmarket Seniors Meeting Place is planning a bus trip to Casino-Rama on January 28th. The bus leaves from the Ray Twinney Recreation Complex, which is located at 100 Eagle Street West at the back parking lot. It's at 9 p.m. and returns at 5 p.m. The ticket cost is $2 for members and $5 for guests. To get your tickets, for more information, please call 905-953-5325. And I also would like to say, in addition, that on Saturday, January 25th, parents can meet with representatives of a number of Newmarket minor sports leagues for information and registration. This event is hosted by the Town of Newmarket at the Magna Center between 10 and 3 p.m. And I'd also like to say, Mr. Mayor, that I wanted to take a moment and honor that today is Martin Luther King Day. And, you know, I recognize that it's an American federal holiday, but I think that globally we need to honor him too. So I would like to show my respect, and I think that it's more poignant to remember Dr. Martin Luther King because we lost Nelson Mandela a few weeks ago, so I think that it's more poignant now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sponga?
The public is invited to a public information center on Tuesday, January 28th, from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Mulock Room at the municipal offices at 395 Mulock Drive to discuss the proposed reconstruction of 2nd Street from Cotter Street to Prospect Street. That is the official launch of the construction season for 2014. Staff from engineering services and the town of consulting engineers will be available to answer questions and provide information. For further information regarding this project, please contact Tom Unger at 905-953-5300, extension 2504, or email tungar@newmarket.ca. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hampton.
Thank you. Enter the 2014 Winterfest Photography Contest. Photographs can be submitted in black or white. They must be related to the winter or the great outdoors and be ready to hang. Photos must be submitted in person at the town of Newmarket at our municipal office at 395 Mulock before Friday, January 31st. A maximum of 3 photos can be submitted per person. The winners will be announced at the Winterfest on February 1st at 1 p.m. or contacted by phone, and prizes will be awarded the following week. For registration forms and information, please visit www.newmarket.ca under special events in Newmarket Arts and Culture. Also, the ARCH, the Architectural Recreation Culture Heritage Committee. Architectural? Go ahead. Go ahead, Joe. Go, Joe. Here, go. It's all yours. It's all yours, Joe. It's all yours. I don't sit on that committee, actually. I sit on Heritage. But go ahead. I'll leave it to you.
Actually, Councillor Hampton
We may as well have a little laugh tonight anyway,
We're going
so.
to invite all eligible residents to enter a logo design. It's a logo design contest for Rebel Heartland. I actually can't read this, Mr. Mayor. I have a conflict. My wife has entered the contest.
Back to you. Back to you, Councillor Hampton.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so the committee invites eligible residents to enter a logo design contest for the Rebel Heartland. Submissions are being called for a logo commemorating the event in Newmarket for 1837. Contestants must reside in Upper York Region. Entries must be received in person by Whitney Burdell at the Elman Campbell Museum, 134 Main Street South by 4 p.m. on January 24th. Information on the design parameters can be found online at www.newmarket.ca under headlines. Prizes are $500 for first place, $250 for second, and $100 for third. Winners will be announced on February 6th on the Town of Newmarket's webpage and in the ERA. For further information, you can call 905-953-5314. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking on the explanation of ARCH.
Thank you.
It's a tongue twister in the best of days. Regional Councillor.
Thanks very much. Just want to let people know that the grants deadline is coming up for the Celebrate the Arts Grants Program. This is a grants program that's been enabled through the Council's initiative, chaired by the Mayor and myself, to create a fundraising program for the arts in our community. And the money goes towards these applications. So grant categories include youth, ages 17 and under, post-secondary education, 18 to 25, and projects and events. So there's 3 categories. The deadline is 4 p.m. on February the 21st, 2014. And for more information, you can go to newmarket.ca, or you can email artsgrants@newmarket.ca. And also, for those looking to apply, there's actually going to be a grants workshop on January the 29th. At the Newmarket Community Center in Lions Hall, number 4, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. to help with the writing of that grant. So anybody interested in the arts, whether you're an organization or a youth or post-secondary education student, please consider applying for this grants program and help foster the arts in Newmarket.
Thank you. Councillor Twinney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to congratulate the Newmarket Softball Association. Tonight, prior to the council meeting, we had a bit of a celebration. They are awarded a $68,800 Trillium Grant Fund and they are celebrating their 40th anniversary this year. So they've got lots of great things happening, and just want to say congratulations to them. They all came out tonight in the foyer, and our MPP was here, as well as a member from the Trillium Grant Association to give them their award. Another item that's on my list of community announcements is something that I definitely would encourage all members of Newmarket to come and see. I was there this weekend and watched part of the hockey game there, and it was fabulous. It's our newly built pool ice lounge, and it's at the Newmarket Riverwalk Commons. It's at where the ice rink is. The members of the public that were there were just raving about it, and I thought it was absolutely fabulous. So I want you to go out, check it out, and then use Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, hashtag Newmarket Ice Lounge, and you and 20 of your closest friends could win an exclusive chance to watch a live Canadian Olympic men's hockey game with game snacks provided by the Pickle Barrel in Newmarket. This contest runs from now until February 16th, and you can go to the Town of Newmarket website for more information, and certainly encourage you to go out and check it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerwin?
Mr. Mayor, the public is invited to a Public Information Centre on Thursday, February the 6th, and this is important to residents on Shrigley, from 6 to 8 p.m. in the council chambers of the municipal offices at 395 Mulock Drive to discuss the proposed reconstruction of Shrigley Street from Prospect Street to Muriel Avenue. Project drawings will be on display. Staff from the engineering services and the town's consulting engineers will be available to answer questions and provide information. And for further information, you can contact Tom Unger at 905-953-5300. And this is going to be a very busy year for Ward 2 because Shrigley will be going and Sparrow Road and other projects throughout the town. So it's going to be a great year, and that's why we need Burnside. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Vey?
Thank you. First, we do have the Ward 1 community drop-in coming up. It's going to be on a Tuesday, February 4th from 7 to 9 p.m. And as the residents of Ward 1 certainly know that the first Tuesday of each month, I hold the community drop-in at the Magna Centre. And we just passed a milestone with the community drop-in. Back on January 7th, I believe, January 7th, we celebrated the 40th Ward 1 community drop-in that we've had, and I'd like to thank all the Ward 1 residents that came out. We had about 60 people attend in the -20 temperature, so that was absolutely great. And I'd also like to thank Mayor Van Buyden and Regional Councillor Taylor for coming out. The residents were certainly very pleased to see you there, and both of you, I believe, had a terrific time there too. It was a lot of fun that night, very well. So again, we have the Ward 1 drop-in coming up on Tuesday, February 4th, 7 to 9 p.m. at the Magna Centre. Please come by and say hello. Also coming up, we have the Newmarket's annual Winterfest event, and that's going to be starting on Saturday, February 1st, 8 in the morning at the Newmarket Riverwalk Commons on Doug Duncan Drive. And it always starts off there with a $1 pancake breakfast, and it's a great way to start Winterfest. Over there too, we'll have a family bingo, children's activities, skating. If you haven't seen the Ice Lounge, it's your opportunity to come by and check out the Ice Lounge. It is, as Councillor Twinney said, just spectacular. Congratulations to staff on that. Then the Winterfest, some activities move to Fairy Lake or start up at Fairy Lake from 10 to 3 in the afternoon. We have wagon rides, pony rides, children's games, train rides, and hot food with the emphasis on hot. And admission is free for these for Winterfest. A couple of the activities have a nominal fee, but overall the admission is free, so come out and join it. And then Winterfest continues on the Sunday, February 2nd at Ray Twinney Recreation Complex, and that'll be with free public skating from noon to 2 in the afternoon and free public swimming from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. And we will appreciate a donation of a non-perishable food item. If you'd like more information on Winterfest, please do go to our website. There are a lot of activities that are happening during Winterfest I haven't mentioned yet, and its website is www.newmarket.ca, or you can give us a call here at the town at 905-895-5193. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerwin?
Just, Mr. Mayor, I left out one item. I shall be again at the Newmarket Public Library this Saturday, which is January the 25th, from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30, and I'll be in the basement, so when you go through the front door, just go downstairs. Sorry, Gary.
Councillor Sponga?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be remiss if I forgot to mention the fact that on Friday and Saturday, one of the reasons why I've lost my voice is I attended minor hockey tournament in Bradford, and I wanted to congratulate Newmarket Adam House League Teal team who won the silver, and was able to come back and catch a couple of games of the Silver Stick tournament. Again, I want to congratulate Ken and all the organizers. It was an incredible event on Saturday evening, and I was telling Ken I had the pleasure to see several of the Silver Stick hoodies that were for sale at the Magna on Main Street, and a couple of the businesses, which mean that somehow the dollars did trickle down to our businesses, so congratulations to them.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to congratulate Ken and Wayne for their 25th anniversary in organizing the Silver Stick. This is a North American league, the finals, and I think there were 72 teams that came to Newmarket with over 900 people, and so there's a real opportunity for tourism in our community, and it's all built around the Magna Centre. But also on behalf of the members of council and the residents of the town of Newmarket, I'd like to congratulate 15-year-old Gabrielle Dowman on her second place finish at the Senior Women's Division at the National Figure Skating Championships on January the 20th. But equally important, she's earned a berth on the Canadian figure skating team competing at Sochi, the 2014 Olympic Games, and we wish her well. So it's something we should be proud of. We should see if we could get a Twitter handle so that our community could find a way to cheer her on as the Olympics go forward. So we'll talk to communications and see if there's some way that we can make sure that Gabrielle knows her community is behind her, and that we're proud that she's representing Newmarket in the 2014 Olympics. Our next council meeting is on Monday, February the 10th at 7 p.m. Any matters of new business? Councillor Twinney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think members of staff are not going to be happy. I'm constantly sending emails about this, and I'm bringing it up tonight again, and I brought it up at Committee of the Whole, just regarding our sidewalks. And I've had so many emails and correspondence from residents about the condition of our sidewalks, and I do realize that we are under, had extremely a lot of snow this year and ice, and it's been a challenging year. But my question is, and this, I don't know if we can answer this tonight or whether perhaps staff can get back to me, and it could be a benefit to other members of council as well, is just how we, what's our protocol for prioritizing how we clear our sidewalks? And the reason I'm asking is, for the last couple of weeks, I've been sort of, I walk my dog and I, take my son to school, and just lots of friends I know walk their children to school, and I have noticed that that continuously the area in the industrial area, Harry Walker, Carysdale, Ringwell, is cleared early in the morning, early in the day, cleared quite well. Yet Patterson, which is an area, and other streets that are leading to schools, are not cleared till perhaps later on in the day. And Patterson is a very, very, the number of people that walk on Patterson is extremely high. And it serves two schools. It serves the high school. It serves the Meadowbrook. And it takes quite a bit of time to clear that sidewalk. And I'm just wondering why, just wondering how we prioritize and why we are doing the industrial area first. It's always well taken care of, where most people are walking, but yet an area that's extremely high traffic in walking isn't getting done as quickly.
Mr. Prentice?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe that there are 8 no-plow routes, and the policy of the town for plowing sidewalks, we do approximately 40 to 50% of the sidewalks in town, maintain them, and there's a two-tier where certain sidewalks and routes are designated as primary routes, and they're done first, and then the secondary routes are done second. Generally, arterial and collector roads that have sidewalks, and you can tell they're usually the ones that have sidewalks on both sides, do receive service. Other roads that are not arterials that may connect to a school or may connect walkways also receive service, and that is the way it is mapped out each year. So each year the Public Works Department and the Engineering Department will get together and map out these priorities. Streets are very rarely ever taken off it. Usually there's streets being added. Your question is, how do they get prioritized in terms of when they're done? That question has come up, I think, by Councillor Sponga. Are we designing our route so that it deals with the schools first? We certainly can take a look at that. It's a challenge in that if you put 8 snowplows out there at 4 in the morning or whatever it is, I think it's not since I ran a municipal election, but I think there's about 35 schools in town. So it's a challenge to get to all of them before they open in the morning. There'll be other circumstances in that where certain streets are done because of the dangerous conditions, in that if they're on a regional road or they have a very small strip between the sidewalk and the plow, we have problems keeping them clear because the regional or our own plows are always taking road snow and dumping them back on the sidewalk. So we can certainly take a look at that, what you're suggesting with respect to Patterson, and see if that is the case. Sometimes it has to do with where they're coming from, and they come from the industrial area.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I just would like to look into it, because, and I understand, I mean, it's not it's certainly not an exact science, and it's not an easy thing to manage, but I just would like to see that, that when we are plowing sidewalks, that we look at the areas that are frequently trafficked by people walking first, and then, the industrial areas like Carysdale, or Ringwall and Harry Walker that are they're looking really good, are getting done, and the other areas are not. And it may be just, just like staff to look into seeing how perhaps it could be done a little bit better and moving forward.
We could do that, Mr. Mayor. We really appreciate the feedback, and we appreciate the work that Council has been doing. I know there's been a lot of communications with the public, and it's been a very difficult year. I've never seen a situation where the sidewalks had the condition that they have now with the large buildup of ice. It's really difficult for machinery to deal with that. I've noticed might have been this morning, I guess, that the Public Works Department has been trying to get additional equipment out to rent it. It's hard to get equipment because there's such heavy demand, but I did see a Bobcat out working to try to clear some of the ice on I think it was on Millard today, to try and get some of that hard-packed ice that we just keep sanding and salting, but every day it gets a new coat on it. And it's a very complex year, and we really appreciate your input and your support in it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Councillor Mucho?
Just a couple of items under new business. Last week, the council heard, we were at a joint council and NEDAC workshop. NEDAC is Newmarket Economic Development Committee. The committee was on broadband. It's expected that the details, we learned that the details of hosting a post-secondary university or college are going to be released within a few months. Now, one of the things I did was I researched certain municipalities, Chattanooga, Kansas City, St. Louis, their experience with broadband, and those communities all had the same thing in common, and that is a local university. So I can see the advantage of having a local university or college with broadband. But I would like to understand more why we don't have anybody on staff full-time, or at least committed to hiring someone for an RFP to do this work for hosting a university. I know that we've taken it very seriously. I think that it's something that I support. It creates a lot of jobs indirectly, and directly it gives us a good reason to put broadband infrastructure in our community. But do we have an administration that's working full-time on a post-secondary RFP, and if not, why?
I'll direct this to Mr. Sheldon. Actually, there's two questions. One is we have a separate initiative under the broadband, and then also under the post-secondary.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just clarify, I'm not asking about broadband. I'm asking about this more. I just brought broadband up as an example, but what I'm asking for is, do we not have full-time administration working on an RFP for post-secondary school, other than the NEDAC people and, a couple of, I guess, people on staff. I need to know this because, we had a planning consultant for Glenway, and, that was an important file. I think this is also an important file, and I need to know that we are taking this seriously.
Mr. Sheldon, maybe you could...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just focusing on the post-secondary present strategic direction of Council, and it's one of Council's higher strategic directions. I guess a significant effort has taken place and continues to take place to attract post-secondary. One of the measures that is in place is that a group was formed that consists of citizens in various areas that are part of a team working towards a broadband strategy, or sorry, a post-secondary strategy. In addition, Council did give authorization to retain a specialty consultant to deal with this, and that consultant facilitates these meetings. There's two parts to that assignment. The first one is to take a look at the need and the fit and what type of post-secondary presence would be appropriate. The second part was to make the pitch, but very recently the province has changed its approach, and it is no longer an approach that is put forth by the municipalities, but rather by the Educational Institute itself. So what municipalities are doing, they're identifying opportunities in their municipalities, meeting with post-secondary institutes to see if they are interested, if there is a fit with your municipality, and it's up to the post-secondary institute to make that submission when it opens up with the province. So we do have a number of staff that are on this file, in addition to a consultant, in addition to that working group, which are trying to fulfill that strategic direction of Council. It is a very important initiative, and I believe, well, today I did send out an email to Council members indicating that at the next Committee of the Whole, in the closed portion of the meeting, there would be an update in terms of property and a general update in the open part in terms of where we are with post-secondary.
Okay, so who's the consultant? Do we get reports from how I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out how, and when you say working group, are you talking about NEDAC members?
Mr. Sheldon, you want to expand on that as well?
Sorry, did you? Sorry.
No, did you want to expand on that?
Yes, and I'm going to ask Chris if he could just set out some of the members that are part of that group. It is not a subcommittee of NEDAC. It is a group, and it follows along the lines of a report that did come forward to Council. Chris.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We have engaged the consulting group Delta Consulting. They're highly experienced in facilitating and working with communities in the post-secondary area. Their consulting team is well versed in dealing with ministry, and actually one of their team is a former Ministry of Education director level position, so they're very familiar with the processes within the provincial government. They're helping us through with the committee that we've set up, which is not a committee of NEDAC. It has purposely been set up a committee of citizens who are well versed in the post-secondary area and can help us achieve our objectives to move forward. We have a committee of approximately 7 or 8. We do have a couple of NEDAC members, as well as the mayor and regional councillor Taylor is chairing this committee. And we've held, I believe, 3 meetings now through the fall. Our next meeting is scheduled for next Thursday night, and we meet monthly to develop this strategy, which is to come forward approximately at the end of March. So the committee, I don't know if you want details on who the committee is, but we have former superintendents of education, we have people from private colleges, we have former directors within provincial ministries, we have people well connected at Queen's Park, and we have interested and bright community citizens that want to advance post-secondary in the community. So it's a really dynamic group. A lot of good things have been done in the short time that we've been together. And with the ministry proposal call that came out just before Christmas, we're reacting again as a group at staff and at the town, and our post-secondary group will get involved in that as well.
Great, thank you. My second new business has to do with our discussion earlier, and I would like to voice my opposition to setting aside the Code of Conduct review and the report as submitted by staff, and I would like to bring that forward for a to put it on the agenda. I don't agree with the direction of the report. I think that it has to come back to council so that we can have a public discussion. It's a transparent, you know, I know that we pride ourselves on being open and transparent. I don't see why, I don't think that any of you would protest that we bring that discussion to council and have that discussion as to whether we should, in fact, defer this code of conduct for another term.
I wonder if you could be, not right now, but there are a number of reports that you referenced. Some reports have had recommendations and they've been adopted, so that could be a reference point, but I believe that you're referring to some information reports that haven't been dealt with.
No, Mr. Mayor, I'm referring to the Code of Council, Code of Conduct that we...
So was that a report that was brought before council for consideration and was dealt with, or
well,
was not
you do
dealt
know
with?
what the Code of what I'm talking about, Mr. Mayor.
Well, actually, there's a number of reports
the
there.
code,
So
no, I'm talking about, Mr. Mayor, I'm talking about the Code of Conduct. Just get it here. I could read the staff report, because I think you know what I'm talking about.
I guess what I'm trying to do
Code
is...
of Conduct matters, Mr. Mayor, the draft Code of Conduct. We went through an exercise where staff made a report, and it was supposed to come back to council for discussion to implement that report on December 2nd. And staff had sent us an email internally saying, well, we're going to just defer this for another term of council. And I don't agree with that direction.
Okay.
And I think that we should at least have that discussion here, not in internal staff emails between staff and council. We need to have that in the public, and that's what I'm asking you.
Okay, Councillor, I understand what you're trying to accomplish. Could you circulate all of the items that you'd like to be part of that consideration? I know they're all related, but just so that we have all of the information you're referencing when that comes back to us. That's all I was asking.
But there's only one report, Mr. Mayor. It's the draft Code of Conduct is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but there are a number of other reports that are information reports, and they should be included. That's all I'm
Oh,
saying.
absolutely.
Okay, so we're agreed? So,
absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Vey.
I just wanted to follow up on what Councillor Twinney was speaking about, and there was reference to a map showing the routes of primary and secondary sidewalk clearing. I remember years ago receiving that map, and I do understand it's being updated every year to the best staff's ability. If we're going to be having this discussion, it would be helpful if you can just email to us all a copy of that map. And I do want to make one comment that I've actually witnessed myself in my own neighborhood, where with the sidewalk plow clearing a very long path on the sidewalk, so kids can get to the school bus stop, and then the plow, and it's a sidewalk plow, turned and drove down the center of the road to go to another part of the community and start clearing another sidewalk, and residents, parents were always saying, if you're going to drive there, why aren't you even just driving on the sidewalk and doing this? And they're saying, oh, we're not allowed to do it. But they're admitting readily that it was just as easy to take a route on the sidewalk and clear to get to the next route, as opposed to literally coming off the sidewalk and driving down the road a block to go to the next route. It seemed pretty inefficient to do that, and just left the parents scratching their heads. So it would be good to be able to take a look at these routes, and perhaps council members working with parents in our community can perhaps make suggestions on how to rationalize them a bit and make them a little bit more efficient.
Mr. Commissioner, comments?
We could certainly address that, and I could ask the Public Works Department to, we could circulate the policy and as well the map. I thought that we had done it at the beginning of the season, but maybe not. And if there are, council so wished, you know, if you want to give us direction to bring back a report which outlines it, we can certainly do that in the next couple, probably not for the next committee of the whole meeting, but the one following. Then- Yeah, okay.
Okay, good, thank you. Councillor Kerwin.
A bit of help where we don't plow sidewalks, Rob, is long corner lots. Resident contact me by email, like Ainsworth and Bondi. It's really deadly, and Bondi is a short area, and it's just something that I'll look at, and I hope we look at. That's where the problem is, where you have real corner lots, and they're really long. They're probably 50 feet one side and 50 feet the other side, and somehow the resident doesn't. Well, really right now, the ice is really just adhering to the sidewalk. It's virtually almost impossible to get that ice up, but if you could drop off some sand and salt in areas where are high traffic but we don't maintain, because it is really slippery out there, just like Councillor Twinney said. Thank you.
Thank you. No new business. Closed session is not required at this point. Confirmatory bylaw.
Move.
Councillor Sponga, Councillor Emmanuel. All those in favor? Motion to adjourn, Councillor Emmanuel, Councillor Kerwin. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you.